Chapter 1399. The Northern Region Alliance was a force formed by the 6 major sects. Although this force could resist the major sects of the Northern Region, it was also filled with internal conflicts of interest, and these conflicts of interest would cause the 6 major sects to fall apart. That was why the Alliance Grand Banquet was held. The 6 major sects would also distribute the interests of their respective sects during the Alliance Grand Banquet. This year's Alliance Grand Banquet would be held in the Taiyin Heavenly Sect, at the peak of the Taiyin Mountain. The 6 major sects would all be present, and there would be a so-called sparring
Chapter
session.
1408.
Of course, no one would have thought
sparring
that Yixian's
session
ambition
was to show the
so
strength of the
huge
major
that he wanted
sects
to swallow up
so
the
that they
remaining
could have
5
an
sections.
advantage in the distribution
This was something
of
that the
interest.
4 sect masters
To put it
could not
bluntly,
accept. The 6
Li
major sects
Tsungtian
would
was
flex their
originally
muscles
extremely
overbearing so that they could have an
and was used
advantage
to
in the
acting
distribution of
arbitrarily.
interests.
But today,
Sect leader
the 4
Yi
sect
masters
Yi,
had seen for
outside
themselves
the mountain
that Li
gate of
Tsungtian
Snow
paled in
Bamboo Peak,
comparison to
a disciple
Yixian.
of the Taiyin
How was
Heavenly
Yixian
Sect kept
ambitious
calling
enough
the door
to become the
He
leader
had
of
come
the
under
North
the
Region
orders of the
Alliance?
sect leader.
It was clear that he
invite
wanted to
Yixian
end
to
to
the
the
Alliance
Alliance
Grand
Grand
Banquet,
Banquet, and completely
However,
control
he had
the
already
6
called
major
for
sects
half an
in his
hour,
own hands.
but he did not receive
The
any
atmosphere was
response.
so tense that
Rumble.
even the sound of
Suddenly,
a pin dropping could
the
be
mountain
heard.
ceiling
The 4
formation
sect
slowly
masters'
dissipated,
faces were as
and
dark
Fatso
as
Huang
water, walked out with
and
a
there was
frown.
uncontrollable
Greetings,
anger in
Deacon
their
Huang.
eyes. I'm
What
here
kind of
under the
joke was
orders
this?
of the sect leader
If the 6
to
sects
invite
were to
the
merge
1st
into
sect
one,
leader,
to the
then what were
Alliance
the 4
Grand
sect
Banquet,
masters?
the
Were they
person
going to
hurriedly
become
bowed to
Yixian's
Fatso Huang
slaves
and
Got
allow
it.
Yixian
The
to
vice
order them
sect
around?
leader will definitely
And after
be
the
there
6
when the
sects
Alliance
merged
Grand
into one,
Banquet begins.
Yixian would
Fatso
naturally
Huang
become the
said
new sect
impatiently.
master. The person
Wouldn't
did
they
not
have to
dare to
listen
say
to
anything
Yixian's
more,
orders
and
and
immediately
not even
flew
be
away
able
to
to
report
protect
their
the
own
news?
sects?
If you're
Why
courting death,
are the 4 of you not
Fatso
willing?
Huang already knew the
Yixian was
Taiyin
originally
Heavenly Sect
smiling,
leader's plan,
but his
the
smile
corner of his
gradually
mouth
faded
curled
away.
into a
The
sinister
expression
sneer,
on his face
and he
became
turned into a
colder
beam
and
of
colder,
light,
and
and
a
flew
truth
toward
of
the peak
fierceness
of the mountain.
gradually emerged.
At the peak of Mount
Threat.
Han,
An
Yixian
undisguised
was
threat,
like an ancient
an
stone,
undisguised threat,
and his entire
When
body was
Yixian
covered in
revealed
ice
a
and
ferocious
snow.
look. He sat
It was
cross-legged
obviously
on the
telling
peak
the
of the
4
mountain,
sect masters
and his entire
that there was
body
no room
seemed to
for
have turned into a
negotiation in
fossil.
this matter.
Not even a
You,
trace of
the solar
vitality
sect
leaked from his
master's
body.
temper was the most
Sir,
fiery.
the Alliance
He looked
Grand
at
Banquet
Yixian
is
with
about
an
to
ashen
begin.
face.
We should
And
move.
his Tao integration
Fatso
realm
Huang
cultivation
quietly
base
appeared behind
was faintly
Yixian.
seeping out.
He bowed to Yixian.
It was obvious that
but there was a
Yixian's
hint
wild
of worry
ambition
in his eyes.
had aroused
This
his
was
desire
because
to
he didn't know if
resist.
Yixian
Do you
had
have something
stepped into
against
the
me?
Tao comprehending
Yixian's
realm
eyes
during
narrowed
these
as he
10
slightly
years.
raised his 5
After all,
fingers.
he
A
was worried
terrifying
about
ball of
Yixian,
light condensed
as
in
he
his
had to
palm.
face the
As
murderous
long as the
intent
sun
of the
sect leader
sempiternal
dared to
realm.
say no,
Crack.
he would
The ice
explode in the
cracked
next
and
moment,
the snow melted,
and turn this
Yixian's
person into
cross-legged
ashes
body
in the
moved
shortest
slightly,
amount of time
and his
possible.
eyes slowly opened.
Yi Daoyu, please
a gray
don't
light
blame us.
flashed in his eyes.
How about you allow
and
us
the
to
sea
think
of
about
clouds
it?
in front of him
The
twisted
flying
and
Saint sect
disappeared,
master quickly
forming a
stood in front
terrifying
of the
black
extreme
hole
young
vortex
sect master,
whoosh, and said to Yixian with a forced
Yixian
smile.
spat out a stream
Obviously,
of turbid air from
he didn't
his
want
mouth,
to fight with Yixian,
instantly tearing
After
apart
all,
the void in
the
front of
lunar
him.
Saint master
Its
master
power was
heard the
something
admirable
unbearable to
looking
look
at the
at.
hypocritical
Yi Daoyu,
faces
the
of the
unification
face lit
of
up
the
the
six
six
sects
sects
is
as
a
a
huge
huge
matter.
Yixian's lips curled
It's
into
not
a
something
strange
have you
smile.
entered the Enlightenment
No,
stage?
no, no.
Why don't you give us
One
a
more
step
step
have
misunderstood
one
with
more
the
step.
sect
What I
elders.
mean is that the
Yixian
North
will give you
Region
an answer
Alliance
after a
is
month.
daily
Only
formed by
fathomable.
the six
Sect
sections.
master
10 years
even
of
if it is
comprehend
a
the
smile,
body.
it is still a
He'd
pile of
already
loose
gained
sand.
a great deal of
If the
insight.
six sects
He
become
looked at
one,
the four
if he
sect
wanted to
masters
step
and
into
said,
the Tao
"Blessing?
comprehension
All right,
realm,
I'll give the
Yixian's
four of
words
you still
landed
needed to take
the
this
four
final
sect
step.
masters'
This
expressions
last
changed.
step
I hope
required
the four
enough
opportunity
opportunity.
suddenly
Yixian
fell into an
had a
extremely
feeling
impressive
bringing
that
these
this
four fellow
opportunity
Taoists
was
back
the
to the
so-called
sect to rest.
sempiternal realm.
He could only step into the Tao
As for the disciples of
realm
the other 5
when the
sects,
other party
make sure to
gave him
settle
the
them
pressure
down
of life
properly.
and death. Do not
Let's
neglect
go.
our esteemed guests.
Let me see who will be
Yixian
attending the
waved his
Northern
hand,
Region
and
Alliance
Fatty
Grand
Huang
Banquet.
hurriedly agreed.
Yixian
He
strolled
directly
in the
arrived
sky,
in front of
a
the
strange
4 great
smile
sect
on his
masters,
face,
and
this
made
also
an
made
inviting
Fatso
gesture.
Huang excited.
Obviously,
He knew that
it was
Yixian must
impossible
have
for
been
the
mentally
4 sect
prepared to
masters
show
to
such
leave
an
the lunar
expression.
sky sect.
The heavenly
The 4
mountain
sect
was
masters'
shining
faces
brightly.
were as gloomy
The
as
cold
water.
snow was drifting,
They knew that
and the
Yixian
north
was
wind
putting
was
them under
whistling.
house arrest.
The entire venue
If they
was
forced their
solemn.
way out,
there were 9
they
high
would definitely
platforms in the
provoke
void in
Yixian
all
to attack
directions.
them.
The
Then we'll
disciples
have
of to
various
your
sects
sect
were sitting on
the
them
four
with their
sect
legs
masters
crossed.
looked at each other.
Four figures
and
with a
cupped their
terrifying
hands at
aura
Yixian.
formed the dome.
Then they
They
followed
were the lords
Fatso
of the
Huang
four
to the lunar
sections.
sky sect.
In the central
As for
area
the
of the
disciples
venue,
of the other
the
five
master
sects,
of the lunar sect
they were
sat
settled
on a
down
cloud
by the
with his
supreme
legs
elders.
crossed.
This
Beside
time,
him were
the
the four
Northern
supreme
Region
elders.
Alliance grand
However,
ceremony ended
there was an
hastily.
empty cloud
Snow
beside
Bamboo
him.
Peak.
Obviously,
The weather today
it
was
was left for
exceptionally
Yixian.
clear. the deputy
Even the
lord.
cold whistling north
Why is
wind
the
was
deputy
much
lord
weaker.
not here yet?
Yi Xian stood
The
on the
grand
peak
banquet
of the
of
mountain
the
with his
alliance
hands
grand
behind
banquet
his
was
back.
about to begin.
Two figures
However,
were shooting toward
Yi
him.
Xian had not shown
Sir,
up yet.
A familiar
This made
voice
the master
sounded
of the
behind
lunar
Yi
sect
Xian.
gloomy.
This also
After
made Yi
all,
Xian
he
smile
was
and
going
look
to
back.
use the lord of the
It was
sect
Gu
of the
Beichen,
ether to
whom
get
he
rid
had
of
not
Yi
seen
Xian
for
today.
many years.
I have
That's
already
so Huang
informed
was smiling
Deacon
at the
Huang.
side.
The deputy
The three
lord
of them
should
were
be here
finally
soon.
together.
The messenger
Good
disciple
boy,
hurriedly
after so many
reported from
years,
below.
You've actually
As soon as
stepped
this
into the
disciple
Saint King
finished
realm.
speaking,
You really
Yi
didn't let
Xian
me
quietly
down.
walked over
Yi
from the
Xian
horizon.
strolled to Gu Beichen.
However, and
He
patted
did not
him on the
reveal
shoulder
any aura of an
affectionately.
expert.
Sir,
He was
originally,
extremely
Fatso
lucky
Huang
and
informed
did not
me
attract
that
much
you were in the
attention.
lunar sky
After
sect.
all,
I wanted
there were
to come
many
early,
experts at the
but it
grand
just so
banquet
happened
of the
that the
Alliance
Northern
Grand
Region
Banquet
Alliance
at this
Grand
moment.
Ceremony started.
Naturally,
That's
no one
why
would
I
pay
can
attention
reunite
to
with
Yi
you now.
Xian.
Gu Beichen
Yi
grinned.
you are finally
He was
here.
also extremely
With the arrival
excited.
of Yi Xian,
From the human world
the master
to the
of the
chaotic
lunar
world
sect was excited.
The three of
and
them
quickly
could be
got
said
up
to
to
have
greet
been
him.
companions
However,
all the way.
the master
Along
of the
the way,
lunar sect's
they had
attitude
experienced
immediately
countless
surprised
life
the
and
people
death
of the various
situations.
sections.
Although they
They
seemed
all
to be
looked at Yi
master and
Xian and
servant,
sized him up.
they were actually
It was
brothers.
no wonder that the
On
people
this
of
day,
the various
the three
sects
of
were
them
surprised.
sat together,
After
drinking
all,
and chatting merrily.
the master of the
It could
lunar
be said
sect
that it
was
was extremely
domineering.
lively.
And
Even the
also
supreme
extreme
elders
elders
in the
emotional.
sect had to
The
bow
three
to
of them
him.
told each
It
other
could be
about their
said that
past
the
over
entire
the
lunar
years,
sect was
and
under
laughter
his
came
command.
from their mouths from time to time.
At this moment,
Sir,
the
why
master
didn't you
of the
suppress
lunar
them with
sect
force
was
just
lowering
now
his
and
status
completely
to greet
unify the
someone.
six sects?
This naturally made the
Instead,
people
you
of the
gave them a
various
month
sects
to consider.
curious. I was
Especially
afraid that
the
things would
masters of
change
the
if we
four major
delayed.
sects,
Fatso
who were sitting
Huang put down his
cross-legged
wine
on the
glass,
glass.
and
It seems
finally
that this
asked the
person
question
is
in
the
his
deputy
heart.
lord of the lunar
Yes,
sect.
sir.
According
master
to your
of the Flying
temperament,
Saint sect
you
was
wouldn't give
dressed
them
in
time
white.
to consider
His
at all.
cultivation level
better
was
to
also
suppress
at the
them
Tao
directly.
reunion level.
That way,
At this
you can
moment,
avoid a
he
lot
was
of
sizing
trouble.
up Yi Xian.
Gu Beichen
This
agreed.
person's cultivation level is
Yi
only
Xian
at the
smiled
path-seeking
slightly
realm,
and said with
even
a
if the
slightly
lunar
deep look
old
in his
geezer
eyes,
invited him into
the
the
six
sect
sects are deeply
and treated
rooted in
him
the
as an
Beichen
important
star
guest.
field.
There is no need to give him the position
If
of
suppressing
deputy
them with
lord.
force alone can
The
unify
master
the
of the
six
Nine-Tune
sects,
sect was
then
a
Li
woman.
Tsangtian
She
can
was
do it
dressed
too.
in black.
The four
and was
sect
also at the
masters
Tao
are all in the
reunion
path
level.
integration
At this
realm.
moment,
If they
she
have
was
enough
sizing up Yi
opportunities,
Xian with her
they can
beautiful
all
eyes.
step into the
Who
immortal
knows
realm.
what the lunar old
This
geezer
is also
up
the
to.
reason why Li
Although the
Tsangtian
path-seeking
doesn't
realm
dare to
is an
suppress them with
overlord in the
force.
Beichen star
If
field.
one of them steps
The
into the
position of
immortal
deputy
realm,
lord of the
it
lunar
will become a
sect
hidden
is not
danger
for this
for Li
person.
Tsangtian.
The solar
At
sect
this
master
point,
sneered.
Yi Xian
Solar
paused
old
slightly,
geezer.
and
Today
a
is
strange
the grand
look flashed
banquet of
across
our
his
alliance.
eyes.
You
Moreover,
and the lunar old
I
geezer
gave them
should
a
put
month's
aside
time
your
to
grudges.
expose all kinds
If there
of
is another
heresy.
dispute,
It is also a
the
hope for
outside
them.
world,
Only
will
when
see
they
the
see
Northern
hope and
Region
destroy it
Alliance
with
as
their
a
own
joke.
hands can they
The
completely
master of the
submit
corpse
to me.
puppet sect
Gu
said in a
Beichen
cold
was slightly
voice.
shocked.
Humph,
Sir,
the lunar sect
you
and
mean
the
that they
solar
don't
sect are
intend to
natural
submit to you at
opposites.
all?
However,
And will look for
you can rest
reinforcements
assured
within
that
this
I will
month?
not lower myself
That's right.
to his level today.
I'm also giving them another
the solar
chance.
sect master said
Yi
coldly.
Xian's lips curled
All right,
into a playful
now only
smile.
the sect leader of the
But
ether
sir,
sect is not
if they
here
really
yet.
get a terrifying
Let's put aside
immortal
our
realm
grudges
expert,
and wait for
wouldn't
the
you?
sect leader of the
Fatso
ether
Huang's
sect to come
expression
and
changed
preside
slightly,
over this
and he
grand
stopped
banquet.
talking.
The master of the Nine-Tune
Yi Xian
sect
defeated
frowned.
Li Tsangtian,
The four sect
and
masters
this was
present
indeed an
also had
impressive
various
achievement.
grudges. However,
Usually there would be
one
friction
shouldn't
between
forget
the
that Li
sections.
Tsangtian,
However,
had just
today was the
entered
grand
immortal
banquet
realm
of the alliance,
and was at the bottom
Naturally,
of the immortal realm.
they had to put aside
If the
their
four
grudges.
sect masters really
However,
invited a
when the
powerful
four
immortal
sect
realm
masters were
expert,
chatting,
given
they all
Yi
looked at
Xian's
Yi
current
Xian.
cultivation,
After all,
he would most
the
likely
fact
be in
that the
trouble.
lunar sect master
You
had
guys
come to greet him
overestimate the four
personally
sect
proved
masters.
that Yi
Yi
Xian
Xian smiled
should not be a
disdainfully
simple path
and then
seeking
slowly
realm
explained the
cultivator.
whole story.
On the other side,
Firstly,
Yi
the
Xian
Beichen
naturally
star
noticed
field
the
was
four
bitterly
Dao
cold,
reunion realm
and cultivation
sect
resources were
However,
scarce.
he smiled
This
and
was
did not
also
pay
why
much
there were
attention
very
to
few
them
immortal
under
realm
the lunar
experts.
sect master's
Moreover,
greeting.
there
The
were
two of
three
them
major
sat
by side on the star field. And it could be said that today is the grand banquet of the alliance. The six terrifying will divide the realm resources that they have existed in the three major sections. There will also be sparring sessions. Even if there were immortal realm experts we will have to trouble you to fight for our sect. Their cultivation wouldn't be that high. The lunar sect master said with a smile. Yi Xian sneered in his heart at the lunar sect master's hypocritical face. Even though there were other undying beings in the North Star field, since I have joined the lunar sect, they were not much stronger than Li Master. I will naturally fight for the interests of our Tao comprehending realm. Please rest assured, in the worst-case scenario, even if he could not kill Li Songtian, with Deputy Sect Master would be invincible. However, will there was one thing that Yi Xian did not mention. The lunar sect master Tao comprehending realm smiled. He had peeked into the Tao fusing realm. The so-called Tao fusing realm required a spiritual level smile on his face. However, as he chatted with the lunar sect master to comprehend the Tao of heaven and earth. He remained calm and composed. Moreover, everyone is early.
Discovered
I
something
am the
very
one who is
interesting.
late. Although his
Suddenly,
cultivation level
a
was not
maniacal
high,
laughter came from
his
the
battle
sky.
strength was
A man
increasing.
in a green robe
Otherwise,
appeared in the middle
he
of
would
the
not have
venue.
been able to
As he
defeat Li
appeared,
Sangtian,
the 5 sect
with just the
masters
Tao
stood up to greet him.
realm.
The disciples
Moreover,
of the various
Li
sects
Sangtian was
also
already
bowed to him.
imprisoned.
It was not that Yi Xian did not kill him out of
the
pity.
leader of the Ether
It was
Alliance.
because Yi Xian wanted to
Greetings
devour
to the
Li
leader of the
Sangtian's
Ether
blood soul
Alliance.
essence chi.
Everyone from
It was
the
a great
6 sects
supplement.
bowed.
Even the
Undying
sect
realm.
masters cupped
Even
their
though he had
fists.
just entered the
However,
undying realm,
Yi Xian
the
remained
blood
seated
soul
calmly
essence chi in his
and
body
had no intention
was
of
not
standing
something
up to
a Tao
greet him.
querying realm
Li
cultivator
Sangtian,
could
the
compare
sect
to.
master of the
As
Ether
long as he
Alliance,
devoured Li
was the
Sangtian,
leader of the North
Yi
Region
Xian
Alliance.
believed that his battle
He had
strength
entered
would
the Immortal
skyrocket.
realm for a million
This was also
years,
the reason
and
why
was
he dared
considered
to
one
give
of
the
the
4
top
sect
figures in
masters
the
a
entire
month to
Basin
consider.
Starfield.
This month
At
was
this
not
moment,
only to
he
give
looked
the 4
around.
sect
When
masters
he
hope.
realized that
It
Yi
was
Xian
also a
was still
process
seated
for Yi
calmly
Xian to
and
devour
had
Li
no intention
Sangtian.
of standing
This
up to
was Yi
greet him.
Xian's true
He was
intention.
stunned.
Then
He
he
turned to look
you
at
are
Yi
now the
Xian.
number 1
As their
spiritual
gazes
son of the
met,
Sun Sky
the
sect.
void trembled and
I am
sparks
afraid that
burst
after
forth.
a month,
Just this
Yi
moment
Xian
of eye
stopped.
contact caused
Sir,
the
don't
entire
worry.
venue to
I have
become
no
strangely
relationship
quiet.
with the Sun Sky
Who
sect
is so
master.
rude?
Back
I heard
then,
that he is the
he saw
vice
my
sect
talent
master of
and
the Sun
accepted
Moon
me
sect.
into the Sun Sky
He seems
sect.
to be a very
All these
capable
years,
person. I have been
what a
fighting
joke.
for him.
He is a big
and
figure
plundering
to
large
us.
amounts of
However,
cultivation
the leader of the
resources.
Ether Alliance
We are
is
just
in the
using
Immortal
each other.
realm.
And is the leader of
hurriedly
the
said,
North Region Alliance.
That's good.
This
Yi Xian
person
nodded
is so
slowly.
rude.
Whispers
The last
could
bit
be
of
heard
heard
continuously.
continuously.
He was
Although
really
the
afraid that
disciples of the
Gu
six
had a
sects were
deep
whispering
relationship
softly.
with the Sun Sky
There were
sect.
too many people.
If that happened,
Instantly,
he would have to be
the
merciful.
entire venue became
After
noisy.
all,
Gu
Immortal
had
realm,
followed him for
Yi
so many
Xian
years.
muttered in his heart
He had to
as
give
he
him
sized
some
up Li
face.
Sangtian.
However,
At the
after
same
hearing
time,
Gu
Li
words,
Sangtian was also
Yi Xian could
sizing up
finally
Yi Xian.
relax.
However,
He could continue
a
with his
mischievous
plan
look
to
flashed
unify
across
the
Li
six sections.
Sangtian's eyes.
What happened
Obviously,
next was very simple.
Li Sangtian
Yi
was
Xian
certain that this
explained
was
some
the
matters
matters
and
and
that the
details
Sun
to
Moon
the
sect
two of them,
master wanted
which
him to
allowed
get
them
rid
to
of.
listen
The
attentively.
sempiternal realm
After
was
that,
indeed
they
terrifying.
both got up and left.
Although he had just
As
entered the
Fatso Huang and
sempiternal
Gu
realm,
left,
he was able
Yi
to give
Xian's
me
eyes
immense
were deep
pressure.
and a gourd appeared
Yi
in his
Xian
hand.
squinted his
As
eyes
he
as
opened the
muttered
gourd,
in his heart.
a gust of
Even
smoke
though he was
spewed out,
extremely
and Li
strong,
Sangtian fell
Yi
out,
Xian was only
covered
at the
in
Tao
blood.
querying realm
Who are
after
you?
all.
Who are
Facing
you?
someone
Li
who was an
Sangtian's
entire
eyes were
cultivation
bloodshot.
realm higher
He
than
knew
him.
that he wouldn't be
He
able
could
to
truly
live,
feel the
but he
difference
didn't
between
want to die
him
with
and Li
regrets.
Sangtian.
Even
The
before he
Immortal
died,
realm
he
was
wanted to
indeed
know
worthy
Yi
of its
Xian's
name.
true identity.
Those who could be called the sect leader were indeed
This was because Li
extraordinary.
Sangtian was
In the
certain
entire
that Yi
chaotic
Xian
world,
definitely had a
the
great
Immortal realm
background.
could be
There
regarded
wasn't
as
a
the
single
top
person
figures.
in the entire
After
North Star
all,
domain
sempiternal
who could
realm
defeat him.
cultivators
An
were
Immortal
already
at the
qualified to
Tao-seeking
seek out the
realm.
seats of the
Such a
strongest throughout
heaven-defying
history.
monster could
They were
only
also
appear in the
supreme
Grand
characters
Central
who
region.
could establish
However,
their own great
such
sections.
a person would definitely not come to the
Of
North
course,
Star
Li
region.
Sangtian
This
was
was
only in
something
the
that
early
Li
stage of
Sangtian
the
couldn't
Immortal
understand,
and was
Who am
still
I?
far from being
Yi Xian
comparable
stood
to
with
the
his
veteran
hands
Immortal
behind his
realm
back
experts like
and looked
sect
down
leader
at
Li
Li
Sangtian.
Sangtian.
However,
His white teeth
his
were
Immortal
faintly
realm
revealed,
cultivation
and
was
when Li
real,
Sangtian
and
saw
it
them,
gave Yi
he
Xian
couldn't
immense
help but
pressure.
shudder.
However,
Before you die,
it was only
I will be a
pressure,
good person,
and it wouldn't
I
affect
believe
Yi
you
Xian
should
in
have
the
heard of my
slightest.
name.
After
Yi
all,
Xian said
he'd fought
indifferently,
with the strongest
Who are
back
you?
then.
Li
And he
Sangtian
could even
stared
withstand the
fixedly at
pressure
Yi
from the
Xian,
strongest,
his eyes as red
let
as
alone a
blood.
mere Li
Yi
Sangtian.
Xian. Moreover,
Yi Xian said softly.
Yi Xian's blood
Yi
was
Xian.
boiling in
Li
anticipation of
Sangtian
the
was
upcoming
stunned
battle,
because he seemed
this
to have
was
heard
because
of
he
this
felt
name
that he had
before,
found a strong
but he couldn't
opponent,
recall where.
and this Li
However,
Sangtian,
in the
should
next
be the
moment,
opportunity
Li
for him
Sangtian's
to
expression
enter the
froze
Tao
as though he was
comprehending
struck
realm.
by lightning.
Back then,
He looked at
when
Yi
he
Xian
fought with the
abruptly,
strongest
and
a
a
look
look
of
of killed the
extreme
Lord
shock
of the
flashed
Extreme
across
Devil.
his eyes.
That wasn't
Yi
Yi
Xian,
Xian's true
you
cultivation.
You are the Yi
After
Xian
all,
who killed the
in
Lord
that
of the Extreme
situation,
Devil.
he had
Li
executed the
Sangtian
future
stammered as he
incarnation
stared at Yi Xian
and a few other
he
forbidden
couldn't believe
arts.
that he would
He
meet
could
such a
only achieve
legendary
that when the
person.
time was right.
Seems like like you have heard of my name now.
Yi
The
Xian
current
nodded
Yi Xian
slowly.
was his true
Boom.
cultivation.
Li Tsongtian's
He really
mind
wanted to try it
exploded,
out,
and he was
even though he was
trembling
an
to the
entire
extreme.
cultivation
Yi
realm
Xian
lower than
admitted
Li
his
Tsongtian,
identity,
and
he
he
wanted
finally
to see if he
confirmed
could
it.
fight with
An
someone who was
extremely
an
bitter
entire
expression
cultivation
surfaced
realm
on his
higher than
face.
him.
You
I
must
didn't
be the
lose
vice
unjustly.
sect leader Yi Tian,
I didn't
right?
lose unjustly
Li
at all.
Tsongtian smiled
How could
as
I
the
be
two
a
of
match
them
for
looked at
someone
each
who
other.
could kill an
That's
immortal?
right.
And
Yi
shake the
Xian
entire
replied
chaotic
indifferently.
universe.
Good.
Li Tsongtian
Let's
laughed
not talk about your
self-deprecatingly.
cultivation realm.
It's just
that
your
I don't
magnanimity
understand
is enough
millions
to
of years
convince
ago.
me.
When
Everyone
we spar,
said that you were
I would
dead
like to
and
ask
your
you
soul
for
scattered
advice.
in the universe.
Li Tsongtian
How could you
smiled
appear
as
in
he
the
spoke.
North Star domain?
However,
his
in the
words
next
carried a
moment,
high and
Li
mighty
Tsongtian
attitude.
roared with
As
resentment.
soon as he finished
After
speaking,
knowing Yi Xian's
the people
identity,
from the sixth
his
sex
heart was
all
filled
had different
with fear and
expressions
unwillingness.
as they looked at Yi
Why would he
Xian
meet
with
such a
gazes of
legendary
pity.
person?
Obviously,
If he knew his
in
identity,
the eyes of everyone,
he wouldn't have
since Yi
interacted
Xian
with
was
Yi Xian
targeted
at all.
by Li Tsongtian.
The
Looking
immortal
at Li
stage expert,
Tsongtian's unwilling
he would
and
probably
resentful
end up in an
expression,
extremely
Yi
miserable
Xian
state
lightly
today.
said,
Even if he
already
could
been very
survive,
merciful to
he would
you.
probably be
I'll
heavily
mercifully
injured
tell
and
you who
lose all
killed you.
face. As
At
for
this
why
moment,
I appeared in the
the
Northern
Lunar
Star
Sect
region,
Master's lips
do you
curled
think
into
you
a
have the
cold
qualifications to know?
and a murderous
Yi
intent
Xian,
flashed
don't be too
across her
proud.
eyes.
Even
The
if I
Lunar
die in
Sect
your
Master
hands
was
today,
still thinking
you
about
will
how
die
to let
without
Yi
a burial
Xian
place
and
in
Li
the future.
Tsangtian fight.
You will eventually
now that
become
everything
a
was going
skeleton
according
under
to her
someone's
plan,
feet.
she
Li
could finally
Tsangtian
get
cursed
rid of
with
Yi
resentment.
Xian.
This hidden
There are
danger.
many people who have
I'm
cursed
also
me to
interested
die
in
in horrible
sparring
death.
with you. You are
I just hope
definitely
that
not
you
the
won't
first,
disappoint me,
and definitely
Yi
will not
Xian
be the
said
last.
indifferently.
However,
You
can go
following
in
Yi
peace,
Xian's words,
because your
not
death
only
can
was
also
Li
help me
Tsangtian
complete my
stunned,
cultivation.
everyone from the
This is
sixth
also
sect
your
sucked
honor.
in a breath of
Roar.
cold air and looked at Yi Xian strangely.
In the next moment,
Obviously, Yi Xian
even though
opened
Yi
his mouth
Xian was a
wide,
Dao-querying
and a terrifying
realm
black
cultivator,
fog spread
and
out,
was indeed a great
instantly
cultivator
drowning
in
the
Li
entire
Tsangtian.
North Star domain.
Li
He was
Tsangtian screamed
insignificant
miserably
in front of an
because
immortal
the
realm
combination
cultivator.
of the calamity
How dare he
transcender
say such
technique
arrogant words?
and the heaven-devouring demonic
death.
skill was too
Interesting.
It could cruelly deprive a person of
Li
their flesh,
Tsangtian nodded
soul,
approvingly,
and cultivation.
and a murderous intent
It could be
flashed
said that
across
death
his
was
eyes.
better than living.
Obviously,
You will
he
die
had
a
already
horrible
sentenced
death.
Yi Xian to
Li
death.
Tsangtian's flesh
Originally,
and blood continued
according
to
to Li
melt,
Tsangtian's
and his
thoughts,
cultivation gushed
the
out.
deal between him
A long
and
river
the
of
Lunar
blood
Sect's
whistled
master
towards
was
Yi
just a
Xian,
piece of cake,
and was directly
he could
swallowed
casually
into
kill
his
Yi
mouth.
Xian.
This
But
caused
now,
Yi Xian's
Li
body to
Tsangtian
swell
really
crazily
wanted to
as
kill
a
Yi
terrifying
Xian
and
because
ferocious
Yi Xian
aura
didn't
surged
respect
out.
him at all.
Time passed
This
bit
was
by
also a
bit,
challenge
and
to
a
his
white
authority
skeleton
as the
appeared.
North Region
Li
Alliance leader.
Tsangtian's soul
Let the
had
grand
already
meeting
dissipated
begin.
between
Li
heaven and
Tsangtian
earth.
didn't look at
As
Yi
a gust
Xian
of wind blew,
as he took a step
the white
forward
skeleton
and
turned
sat
into dust
cross-legged
and
on the
drifted
central
away.
dome.
His ending could be said to be
scroll
too
was
horrible to
casually
look
thrown
at.
out by him.
Who?
And
A
a series
mouthful
of
of
void
majestic
vision
blood
appeared.
chi was spat
These
out
void
from Yi
vision
Xian's
included
mouth.
mountains and
His
lakes,
body swelled,
and there were
and his
many
face
red
was
dots
flushed
on them.
red.
He was not
Obviously,
shocked by
the
Li
red dots
Tsangtian's
were
death at
places
all.
with spirit
Yi
veins,
Xian sat
which were
cross-legged
also the
and
resources
began to
that the
refine
sixth
Li
sects were going
Tsangtian's
to distribute.
cultivation.
The
Fellow
heaven burial
Taoists,
technique
I don't want
rumbled
to
in
say
his
too
body,
much,
and
my
his
entire
entire
body
body
was covered by a
40%
light,
of the spirit
causing
veins,
people to feel
and
a
the
sense
remaining
of fear
60%
when looking at him from
will be
afar.
divided among the 5 sections.
Following Li Tsangtian's words, the faces of the
Chapter
5 sect
14:10.
masters changed.
4 Seasons
They didn't
Pavilion.
expect Li
The night
Tsangtian
was
to
like
be so
water.
greedy. The moon
In the
hung high
previous
in the
division
sky,
of the spirit
and the
veins,
candlelight was
the
swaying
sect of the
slightly.
ether had
The 4
increased
sect
from
masters
20%
sat
to
opposite each other.
30%.
Each
They
of their
didn't
faces
expect Li
extremely
Tsangtian
gloomy,
to increase it
and
to
an extremely
40% for
solemn
this year's
atmosphere
grand
was
meeting.
quietly growing.
Fellow
You've gone
Taoist
too far.
Tsangtian. The
Bang.
6 sects
The
advance
extreme
and
young
retreat
sect
together.
master slammed
Although
the
you
table
are in
and
the
stood
immortal
up.
realm,
His
and
face
the
was
leader of
green
the
and
North
red.
Region
This
Alliance,
Yi Xian is
and
too
have made
ambitious.
great contributions
He doesn't
to
want
the
the
6
six
sects to merge into
Don't
one.
you think 40%
He wants
of
to
the
swallow
spirit
up our
veins is
5
too
sects
much?
and become
Sect
the
master
sect
Jiu
master of
Chu
the 6
frowned
sections
and expressed
the
his
flying Saint sect
dissatisfaction.
master said
That's
gloomily.
right.
If
All
the
right,
sect of the
what's
ether
the
takes
use of saying this
40%
now?
of the spirit
We
veins,
still have a month.
how are we going
must
to
find a
divide
way
the
to
remaining
deal with
60%?
The Jiu Chu
Sect master
said
said
voice
coldly.
was cold.
It's easy for
Fellow
you to
Taoist
say.
Tsangtian,
Even Li
isn't your
Tsangtian was
appetite a
defeated
little
by
too
this
big?
person.
I'm
Solar
afraid
Sect
he's in
Master
danger
had
now.
the worst temper.
Where are we going to find
However,
someone
Li
who can kill
Tsangtian
him?
was in the immortal
The
realm
Corpse
after
Sect
all.
Master said
He could only
the
suppress
4
his
sect
anger and
masters
asked.
each expressed their own opinions. Obviously, they were
Chapter
extremely
14:01.
dissatisfied with
Li
Yi Xian's
Tsangtian was
ambition
not
to
surprised
swallow up
when
the
he
6
saw the
sections.
dissatisfaction
Naturally,
on the
they were
faces of the
unwilling
sect
in their
masters.
hearts.
Who is it?
Apparently, he had
Suddenly,
expected this
the
result.
Jiu Chu sect
My
master
friends,
narrowed her brows
you only
and
see that
reached
the
out
sect
with
of
one
the
hand.
ether wants
A figure
40%
was
of the
instantly
spiritual
sucked in by
veins.
her.
But
When
have
the
you
4
seen the
sect
benefits
masters
that
saw
I
who
fought
it was,
for the 6
their
sects?
faces suddenly
Li
froze.
Tsangtian's face
Lin
turned
Qing
cold as he
greets the 4
continued.
seniors.
The 3 major sects
Surprisingly,
of the North
this
region have
person
been
was
oppressing
Lin
our
Qing,
sects all year
the
round.
disciple of the Moon
If I
sect
didn't lead
master,
the sect of the ether
at this
to
moment,
take the lead,
she quickly
how
knelt
could we
down in
obtain
front of
so
the
many
4
spiritual veins,
showing her cautiousness.
The sect of the
You
ether
are
has
the
suffered
disciple
heavy
of the Moon
casualties.
sect master.
Don't we need
The
to
Jiu
recover
Chu
our
sect
strength?
master frowned
Isn't
slightly.
it unfair for your
Yes.
sects to hide
Lin
behind
Qing
and enjoy the
quickly
fruits of our
responded,
hard work?
showing her utmost
Li
respect.
Tsangtian
Xian said sternly.
Why did you eavesdrop
Fellow
on our
Taoist
conversation?
Song Tian, that's not
Did
right.
Sect Master Yi
Back
send you
then,
here?
when we were
The
fighting
corpse
against
sect
the
master
Dark North
asked with a
sect,
trace of
our
murderous
5
intent
sects
in
also
his eyes.
contributed a lot.
Seniors,
Who
please
knows
don't
how many of our
misunderstand.
disciples died?
I have a grudge
How
against
could we
Yi
just sit
Tian
back
for killing
and
my
enjoy
master?
the fruits of others'
How
labor?
could I be sent by him?
Sect Master Corpse
Lin
Puppet
Qing
said
quickly
gloomily.
explained.
Logically
then
speaking,
why are you here?
the 5 sect
The
masters
Jiuqiu
did
sect
not want
master
to
gave
offend
the
the
3
sect
sect
masters a look.
After all,
indicating
he was the
that
only
they should
immortal
not kill
realm
Lin
cultivator
Qing
in the North
and
Region
see what
Alliance.
she wanted to do.
But the spiritual
Seniors,
veins
please
were too
understand.
important.
It was related
to the
development of their
sections.
Not only
Therefore,
did he kill Junior's
the sect
master,
masters could only
he
fight
also
for
wants
it.
to annex the 6
I don't want to
sections.
talk nonsense.
Junior can't
The
wait
sect
to
of the
eat his
ether
flesh
must take
and drink his
40%
blood.
of the
How
spiritual
can I
veins.
associate with him?
As for the remaining
Today,
60%,
I came here
it's
on the
up to
orders
you.
of the 4
If you
supreme
don't
elders.
agree with my decision,
I hope that the 4
the sect
sect
of the
masters
ether
can
will
think of a
withdraw
way
from the
to
North
expel this
Region
person
Alliance
from our lunar
and
sky
give up the
sect.
position of the
However,
leader of the
in order
alliance.
to avoid being
Li
discovered by
Sangtian was
Yi Tian,
completely fearless.
I came here secretly.
After all, Lin
he was the
Qing'er
only
quickly
immortal
said,
realm
when the
cultivator
4
in
sect
the North
leaders
Region
heard Lin
Alliance.
Qing'er's words,
If he led
they
the sect of the
exchanged
ether
glances
out of
with
the
each
North
other.
Region
A
Alliance,
hint of doubt
how
rose
could
in
the
their
5
eyes.
sects resist
Logically
the 3 major
speaking,
sects of the
with Yi
North
Tian
Region
as the sect leader,
the
6
sect master
would be united under his leadership.
Anger
This was
burned
a
in her
great
heart,
thing for the lunar
but she
sky
could only
sect.
suppress it and let out a long sigh. Why would
My
the 4
friends,
supreme elders
since
take
Brother
the risk to
Sangtian
send Lin
wants
Qing
40%
or
of
to
the
contact
spiritual
them?
veins?
However,
We'll take 40%.
in the next moment, we'll share the
4
remaining
sect
60%
masters came to a
equally.
realization.
What do you think?
And a knowing smile
Sect Master
appeared on
Lunar
their faces.
persuaded.
Obviously,
Lunar old ghost,
although
it's
Yi
easy for you
Tian's
to
combat
say,
strength was
but how can we
heaven-defying.
share the
He
remaining
was still an
60%
outsider.
equally? Now that
Are
the
you going
lunar
to give
sky
up your
sect
lunar
master
sect
was
share?
dead?
The
Sect master
successor to the
corpse
position of
sneered.
sect master.
That's right.
Could only be
If
one
you
of the 4
tiny old
supreme
man
elders
are willing
if
to
Yi
give up your
Tian
sect
annexed
share,
the 6 sects,
we will agree
they
to
would have to be ordered around by him.
request for 40%
Naturally, the
of
4
spirit
supreme
vein.
elders would
The
not agree
Ascension
to
sect
that.
master also
After
sneered.
all, everyone
it was
had their
obvious
own
that the
selfish
Sun Moon
motives,
sect master
and
was
the 4
speaking up
supreme
for Li
elders were no
Sangtian.
exception.
And this made
No
the
one
other
wanted
sect
to be a
masters
slave to
unhappy.
others.
It
How
was
can it be
obvious
so
that the
easy
Sun
to
Moon
expel
sect
Yi
master
Tian?
was already
Even
on the
Li
same boat
Sangtian
as
was
Li
defeated by
Sangtian.
him.
Fellow
What can we do?
Taoists, please don't
Sect
be
Master
anxious.
Jiu Chu's
Our
eyes
lunar
flickered.
sky sect still
4
has
sect
some
masters,
foundation.
please understand.
This time,
Our
our
lunar
supreme
sky
elder
sect
knows that
can
things
forgo
are
the
tricky,
division of the
so he
spirit
specially
vein.
sent Junior here to inform
I just
you
hope that
seniors
fellow
of a piece of
Taoists
news.
won't fight among
Perhaps
themselves.
this news will be
The lunar
useful
sky
to the 4
sect
sect
master said
masters.
with a kind look on
Lin
his face.
Qing'er quickly said,
The
"Oh, what
faces of
news?"
the 4 sect
The solar
masters
sky
changed
sect
slightly.
masters' eyes lit
They
up.
had just casually
10 years
mentioned
ago,
it.
and
According
didn't
to the
expect
news from
that
my
the Sun
sect's
Moon
outer
sect
sect
master
disciple,
would really give up
an
her
ultimate
share.
seed
This
came to
caused
the
the
North
4
region
sect
from the
masters to
Central
be
region.
shocked as their gazes
Rumor has
towards
it that
the
this
Sun Moon
person
sect
came
master
to the North
and
region
Li
to train
Sangtian
his Tao
turned
heart.
solemn.
He should be in the
Previously,
cold mist
it
city
was
right
mentioned
now.
that the 6
If we
sects
can
had
invite
many
this ultimate
conflicts,
seed here,
and the North Region
we might be able
Alliance
to
was
resolve
formed
this
to
crisis
go against the large
Lin
sects of the
Qing'er
North
quickly
region.
said.
From the
Ultimate
looks of
seed?
it,
The
hearing this
relationship
news,
between
the
the
4
Moon
sect
sect masters were stunned.
and Li Sangtian
That's
was
right.
not simple.
She's right.
And there was probably
My sect's
something
disciple
fishy
had
going
also
on.
sent back this
Sect
news.
master, you can't.
But I thought it was just
If you
a
give
rumor.
up our sect's
Now
spirit
it seems
vein,
like it might be
how
true.
are our disciples going
Sect
to cultivate?
Master Corpse Kuei
An
said in a
elder
deep
of the
voice.
lunar sky sect
But so what
hurriedly
if he's an
kowtowed.
ultimate seed?
It was obvious
This Yi
that the
Tian
Sun
can
Moon
even
sect
kill an
master's
immortal realm
decision
expert.
had
I'm
already
afraid
affected
this
the
ultimate
disciples
seed
of
is
the
no
sect.
match for him.
Not only this
Sect
elder,
Master Jiu
but
Chu
many
frowned.
of the disciples
Brother
of the
Jiu
lunar
Chu,
sky
you
sect
don't
were also
understand.
green in the face.
The ultimate seed
If
is
they
the
gave
hope
up
of
the
the
spirit
sect.
vein,
He will
how are they
definitely
going
have
to
a Tao
cultivate
protector by his
in this
side.
cruel North
This
Star
Tao
region,
protector has to
as
be
long
at
as
least
one's
an immortal
cultivation
realm
fell
expert.
behind by a bit.
As long as we
There
can
was a
invite the
possibility
ultimate
of
seed,
dying in the hands
this
of their
crisis will
enemies.
be resolved.
How could the disciples
solar
of the
sky
lunar
sect
sky
master
sect not
quickly
be anxious?
explained.
But
Step
who's
back.
going to invite
How
this
can you go
ultimate
against
seed
the decision
now
of our
that we're
sect
all
master?
imprisoned here?
The
If
Sun
we do
Moon
anything
sect master's
strange,
face turned
Yi
cold
Tian will
as she
definitely
waved her
notice
hand
it.
to send the elder
Sect
flying.
Master Jiu Chu said
Displaying
in a
the
deep
prestige
voice.
of a sect master.
Isn't she a ready-made
Fellow
candidate?
Grand Taoist is
Suddenly,
still the most
the
reasonable
flying
one.
saint sect
Li
master looked at
Sangtian
Lin
smiled.
Qing.
All
With
right.
a smile.
Since the old
This made
ghost
Lin
of lunar
Qing's
sky sect
expression
is willing
change.
to give up the
Just
division
as
of
she
the
was about
spirit
to
vein.
refuse,
Then our
she
4
was met
sects
with the
will
sharp
share the
gazes
remaining
of the
60%
4 sect
masters.
The Sun
Now
Moon
the
sect
4 of us
masters
can't
said in a
leave
deep
the lunar
voice.
sky sect at all.
Obviously,
You're the
no
only
matter
one
what
who
the
can
Sun
go in
Moon
and out
sect master
freely.
and Li
Moreover,
Sangtian were up
you have
to.
a grudge against
The
Yi
remaining
Tian for
60%
killing your
was
master.
still acceptable
We'll
to
leave
the
this
4
matter
sections.
to you.
Wait.
Suddenly,
The 4
just
sect
as the 6
masters
sect
didn't give
masters
Lin
were
done with the division,
or a chance to
Yi Xian
refuse, and
stood up
immediately
quietly
made the decision.
and took a step
This
forward
made the
to
woman's
stand
face
in front
turn
of the
slightly
slightly
pale,
masters.
but she still
Fellow
nodded
Grand
helplessly.
Taoist,
I'll
although
take
you are
my
the
leave.
sect master,
Lin Qing,
you don't have the right
slipped
to
into
take
the
away the
darkness
cultivation
and quietly
resources
left the
of your
Four
disciples,
Seasons Pavilion
right?
to report
As
this
the
matter
vice
to
sect
the
master,
four grand elders.
I don't agree to give
However,
up the
be it the
spirit
four
vein of
sect
the lunar
masters
sky
or the
sect.
stealthy Lin Qing,
Yi Xian said indifferently.
They didn't notice at all
The
that
Sun
in the
Moon
distant
sect
sky,
master's face
Fatso
changed as she
Huang
looked
and
at Yi
Gu
Xian
Beichen were
coldly.
smiling coldly.
She did not know
A
who Yi
bronze
Xian
mirror was reflecting
and
the
why he wanted
conversation
to join the
between
lunar
Lin
sky
Qing,
sect.
and
But
the
now
four
that
sect
Yi Xian had
masters,
jumped out to
the
oppose
two of
her,
them had a
she
panoramic
felt that
view of
something was
everything.
wrong.
The entire
Indeed,
Four Seasons
the Sun
Pavilion
Moon
had
sect
been set
master
up with
looked
star
to the
veins
side
by Yi
and
Xian.
saw the disciples
Every
and
movement
elders
of the
clenching
four
their
sect
fists
masters
as
their
their
faces
faces
turned
turned
red.
surveillance.
They looked at Yi
Everything
Xian
was
with
under Yi
gratitude.
Xian's control.
Oh no.
The
Sir
Sun
was
Moon
right.
sect master
Not
cursed
only
in
are
her
the four
heart,
sect
she
masters
was only
restless,
thinking about the
even
deal
Lin
with Li
Qing,
Songtian,
and the
and
four
wanted to
grand
kill Yi
elders
Xian
are
first.
restless.
Gu Baichen sneered.
Then,
let them be.
She would be able to take back the spirit vein once she entered the immortal realm.
Sinisterly.
However,
a cruel look flashing
the
in his
disciples of the
eyes
sect didn't know what he was thinking.
At
The
this
four
moment,
sect masters
he was
weren't
basically
happy
giving
because of
away
Lin
the entire
Qing's
arrival.
cultivation
Instead,
resources.
the four of
This
them
had
looked
already
even more
caused the
serious.
disciples of the sect
We can't
to question
place
him
all our bets on
as
the
the
so-called
sect master.
strongest seed.
The Sun Moon
If the
sect
other
master
party
knew
isn't
the
willing to
importance
help
of the
us,
people's hearts,
we'll be at Yi
the
Tian's
entire
mercy
sect
in a
was not
month's
formed
time.
around her.
Sect Master
But the
Corpse
development
said,
of the entire sect.
That's right.
Sacrificing
so
the
too.
interests of the
Sect
sect
Master
was a
Flying
huge
Saint
taboo.
agreed.
And it
Everyone,
made the disciples
this is
and
a matter
elders
of
of
life
the
and
sect
death
unhappy.
for our sect.
If this
We
matter
need to think
happened
of
in
a
the
safe way to
orthodoxy
deal
of the
with
Great
Yi Tian.
Central Territory,
Sect Master
it
Solar
would be
calmed
fine.
down as well.
After all, the Great Central Territory was vast and cultivation resources were everywhere. But it was different in the North Star Territory.
Suddenly,
the North
Sect
Star
Master
Territory
Jiu Chu
was
said
bitterly
hesitantly,
cold, and
actually,
the people there were fierce.
there's someone who might
They
be
could
able
kill
to defeat
thousands
Yi
of
Tian
people for a
and even
limited
kill
amount
him.
of cultivation resources.
The three sect
Now that
masters
she was
were
going to
stunned
take
and
away
looked
the
at Sect
cultivation
Master Jiu
resources
Chu.
of her disciples,
Fellow Taoist Jiu
the hidden
Chu,
danger was
why did you
extremely
only mention this
terrifying.
now?
Even
Why
though
don't
the
you
Sun
invite
Moon
him
Sect
here?
Master understood
Sect
the
Master
logic
Solar
behind
said
it
impatiently.
She was already riding
That's
a
right,
tiger,
fellow Taoist
and
Jiu
it was
Chu.
too late to
If
regret.
there's really such a
Right
person,
now, why
the
didn't
only
he say
way was
so
to brace
earlier
himself
Where
and
is he
continue
now?
walking.
Sect
He had
Master
to
Flying
first
Saint
suppress
asked
Yi Xian.
anxiously,
This
thorn.
thorn.
And
Sect
appeased
Master
the people in
Jiu
the
Chu
side and
sect
said in
after
a
the
low
alliance
voice,
gathering.
You all know
Yi
this
Dao
person. You have just
He's
joined my
Mountains
sect
Loose
and
Cultivator.
are not familiar with the
What?
matters in the
Nine
sect.
Mountains Loose
I will
Cultivator?
tell you the reason
The
in the
three
future.
sect
Leaders exclaimed
The
in
Sun
shock.
Moon Sect Master
Obviously,
forced a
they knew
smile,
this person
looking
as well.
at the Sun Moon
However,
Sect Master's
the
awkward
three
and
sect
cold
leaders
expression.
were all dumbfounded,
Yi Xian's lips
as
curled
if they
into
had
a
heard
strange
something
smile,
unbelievable.
and a murderous
Fellow
intent
Taoist
flashed
Jiu
across
Chu,
his
are you
eyes.
sure?
What
Didn't
a joke.
Senior 9 Mountains
Ridiculous.
Loose Cultivator die?
You are the sect
Is
master,
he still alive?
but you betrayed
Sect
the
Master
interests of
Solar
the
said
sect
in confusion
and ignored your disciples.
Listen to me slowly.
What else do you
Sect
need to
Master
explain?
Jiu Chu sighed
Yi
and
Xian
began
said
to tell them
righteously,
some secrets.
Vice Sect Master
Immortal
Yi is
realm.
right.
9
If we
gates of
lose
heaven
these
open,
spirit veins,
the meaning
our
of this
cultivation
sentence
will
was
stagnate.
simple. It was
Sect
about the
Master,
immortal realm.
why do you ignore
There
us,
were 9
disciples?
gates of heaven in the
Someone
immortal
in the
realm.
crowd said
Every
angrily.
time a gate of
This
heaven
was like a
opened,
chain reaction
one's
that
cultivation
ignited
would
the anger
undergo
of
a
the
tremendous
disciples
change.
and elders of the
When the
Sun
9
Moon
gates
sect.
of heaven were opened, and the 9 gates of heaven combined, one could
Chapter
ascend to the seat
1402.
of the strongest
That's
in
right.
history.
Sect
When the
Master,
gates of heaven were
you're
opened,
in the Tao
the
integration
heavenly
stage
core of
and
chaos
have a
would
bright
appear.
future.
The 9
However,
gates of heaven
just
were the 9 gates
insignificant
of heaven of the
cultivators.
immortal realm.
If we lose our
when the gates of
cultivation
heaven were
resources,
open,
how can we
the 9
survive?
gates would combine
Sect
into
Master,
one.
please
The
retract
heavenly
your
core
order.
of chaos
Sect
was when one
Master,
achieved
please
Tao
reconsider.
and became the
In
strongest
the next
history.
moment,
The
the topic
disciples
was
of
a
the
little
Lunar
off
Sky
topic.
sect all shouted.
9 Mountains Loose
Clearly,
Cultivator
they were
was
extremely
an immortal realm
dissatisfied
expert
with the
who had
Lunar
opened
Sky
the
sect
third gate of
master's
heaven.
decision.
He was once
This was
famous
related
in
to
the
their
North
lives.
Star Starfield.
How dare
Even
you?
the 3
Are you
great
trying
sects
to
of the
rebel?
North Star
The master
Starfield
of the
did
Lunar
not dare
sect
to
flew
provoke
into a
him.
rage
Unfortunately,
and loudly scolded
9
the
Mountains
disciples
Loose
of the
Cultivator
sect.
was too
He had
famous
never thought that he
and
would end up
attracted
like
the
this
attention of a
because of a
terrifying
small
ancient
mistake
devil.
he had made.
This ancient
A sect
devil was an
master has to
extremely
consider the
ancient and
entire
terrifying
sect.
figure.
If we
in the
allow
North
you to
Star
do as you
Starfield.
please,
An
I'm afraid the
unprecedented
Lunar
battle
Sky
broke
sect
out
will be
between the
doomed
two of them.
eternally. In
Yi
the
Xian
end, shouted
9
coldly,
Mountains
and
Loose
Cultivator
Cultivator
died
transformed
in the
into
battle,
a benevolent
and
and
the
righteous
ancient
person.
devil escaped with heavy
Yi Tian,
injuries.
what do you mean?
But now,
The Lunar
Sect
Sky
Master
sect
Jipu
master
had
suddenly
suddenly
looked
looked
at
Cultivator
Yi Xian
9 Mountain
because the instigator
Clearly
of
Loose
all this was
Cultivator
Yi
9
Xian.
Mountain was
It
still
was
alive.
also because of
This
Yi
made the
Xian's
3
revolt
sect
that this
masters
situation
overjoyed.
happened.
Yi Xian
What do
would
I
be
mean?
dead for sure
Yi
if 9
Xian smiled
Mountain's
strangely,
itinerant cultivator
and then
was
shouted
there.
with a cold
After
expression.
all, 9
You don't
Mountain's
deserve to be
itinerant
the Lunar Sky
cultivator
sect
had
master.
opened the third
You
gate
don't
of heaven.
deserve to lead
Few
the Lunar
people
Sky
in the
sect.
entire North Star field were his
The
match.
Lunar
Sky sect master's face was livid. He finally However,
knew Yi Xian's goal.
before the 3
He
sect
wanted to take
masters
his
could
position
rejoice.
as sect master,
and
Jiu
finally
Chu's
exposed
following
his
words
ambition
were like
at
a
this
basin
moment.
of cold water
Fine,
that
fine,
extinguished
fine.
the flames
Since
in their
you say that I
hearts.
don't deserve
It turned
to be
out
the sect
that
master.
back then
do you
9
deserve
Mountain
to be the
Wanderer
sect
did not
master?
die in the
The
battle
Lunar
with the
Sky
ancient
sect devil.
Master was so
But
angry
his immortal
that he
world
laughed.
was destroyed.
I don't know if Deputy
and his
Sect
cultivation
Master
base
deserves
forever
to be the Sect
stagnant.
Master or not.
Furthermore,
but
his
you
injuries
definitely
were
don't
too
deserve
severe,
to be the Sect
and
Master.
he had been struggling at
if you
death's
give up the
door in
division
the
of the
depths
spirit
the
vein
Nine-Tune
today,
sect.
we
Nine
disciples
Mountains
will
will
definitely
definitely
not
not
agree.
agree.
Hiding in the Nine-Tune
Fatso Huang
sect,
stood up
because
directly,
the previous
and a
sect
large
master
number of
Juku
Lunar
and
Sky
Nine
Sect
Mountains
deacons
cultivator
followed behind
were
him.
best friends.
Obviously,
since the
these
previous
people
sect
had been
master
recruited
Juku
by
had
Fatso
died
Huang
during the
long
Immortal
ago
Tribulation,
to force the Lunar
only
Sky
Sect
Sect
Master
Master to
Juku knew this
abdicate at this
secret.
moment.
Fellow
You
Taoist
traitors,
Juku,
I'll
don't
destroy
you
your
think your
bodies
joke
and
is not
souls.
funny at all?
Rumble.
Solar
The
Sect
Lunar
Master
Sky
said
Sect
angrily.
Master was extremely
Solar Sect
furious.
Master could not
His
be
5
blamed for
fingers
being
suddenly
so
stretched
angry.
out toward
A
Fatso
cultivator's
Huang and
world
the
had been
others.
destroyed,
His terrifying
and his
doubt
cultivation
integration
base
realm
had fallen to
cultivation
the bottom.
erupted. Even if he could survive,
he wanted to kill
he would
all
not
of them.
be able to return
Bang.
to the past.
Suddenly,
if he dared to use
took
his
a cultivation base
and stretched out his 5 fingers,
also
even
stretched,
if 9 mountains
instantly
cultivator
dispelling the
had
lunar
opened the
sky
3rd
sect
gate of
master's
heaven.
attack.
How could a
Why
crippled
are you
immortal
angry
realm
out of
cultivator
humiliation?
be Yi Xian's
Yi
match?
Xian smiled
This was why
sinisterly.
the 3 sect
He stood with his
masters were
hands
so
behind his
disappointed.
back.
As
No,
he
you're
looked
all
at
wrong.
the lunar sect master,
Sect Master Juka
a cruel
slowly
light
shook his
flashed
head.
through his eyes.
His expression was
Yi
extremely
Qian,
solemn.
do you really think
Although
I don't
9
dare to
mountains
kill
loose
you?
cultivator's
At this
world
moment,
has been destroyed.
the lunar sect
His realm
master's
is still
eyes were
there.
bloodshot.
However,
and his face
as
was
long as
ashen.
he ascends to
He
the
was so
extreme,
angry at Yi
he will
Xian
definitely
that his
be
chest
able
was
to
about to
return to his
explode.
former peak.
Although this time is
The
only
killing
2
intent
hours,
in his heart
and after
had already
2 hours,
reached its peak.
his soul will
Use
dissipate
right
and he
Xian
will
Xian.
die.
It's enough to kill Yi Tian.
Yi Xian
What a
Xian.
joke.
No
Solar
matter how
Sect Master
scheming the
said.
lunar sect's
Would
master
he
was,
sacrifice his
he
life
couldn't
for us?
withstand Yi Xian's
Why should he
schemes.
sacrifice his life
right
for
now?
us?
It wasn't
That's
a question
right.
of whether
The
Yi
other
Xian
2
would
sect
die or
masters
not,
nodded in agreement,
but a question of his
Obviously,
dignity as
this
the
was
sect
not
master.
realistic at all.
Fellow
Fellow
sect
Taoists,
master.
It
Since
seems
I can
like
tell
you won't
the
be able
secret,
to keep your
I
position
naturally
as
have
sect
great
master.
confidence.
The Solar
It's only
Sky
because
Sect
my
Master
master
sneered.
once owed 9
The Solar
mountains
Sky
loose
Sect and the
cultivator a
Lunar
great
Sky
favor.
Sect were hostile
Although
to
my
each
master
other.
fell under
The
the
Solar
immortal
Sky Sect
tribulation,
Master was happy
9
to see the
mountains
Lunar
loose
Sky
cultivator
Sect fight
owes my
among
9
themselves.
sect a favor.
The other sect
He even
masters
promised
also
my
had
9
different
expressions
expressions
that if my 9
which made the Lunar
sect
Sky
is in
Sect
danger,
Master's
he will
face
definitely
extremely
help.
gloomy.
Sect Master
Juka said firmly.
Please step down
Hearing
and let
Sect
Deputy
Master
Sect
Juka's
Master Yi
words,
Xian take
the
over
3
our
of them
Lunar
were
Sky
overjoyed.
Sect. However,
Fatso Huang
before the
Xian
3 of
Xian
them
Xian
could speak,
was indeed an
Sect
expert
Master
in
Juku
bewitching
said
people.
with a serious
He
expression,
immediately stirred up the
although I can
emotions
ask
of the
9
people
mountains
around
loose
him.
cultivator
The disciples
to help
of the
our
Lunar
6
Sky
sects
Sect
resolve this
immediately
crisis.
echoed his words.
My 9
However,
sect has to
the
pay an
elders of
immortal
the Lunar
realm
Sky
cultivator
Sect did not go
Therefore,
along.
my 9
After all, they were the
will take
backbone of the
70%
sect.
of the spiritual
Moreover,
vein.
The Lunar Sky
What?
Sect Master
70%
had accumulated power
The
for
3
many
sect
years.
masters'
If he
expressions
really
changed.
asked them to rebel,
Obviously,
these elders
they
would
could not
dare.
accept Sect Master
However, the
Juka's
support of these
exorbitant
Lunar Sky
demands.
Sect disciples was enough.
This gave Yi Xian the
Fellow
general
Taoists,
trend of people's
please
hearts,
consider it yourselves.
which was exactly
Do you
what
want
Yi
your
Xian
sect
wanted.
to be annexed by Yi
Good.
Tian?
The
Or do
Lunar
you want
Sky
to give
Sect
up
Master
70%
repeated the
of the
word
spiritual
good 3
vein?
times.
At
At
this
this
moment,
moment,
Juka
he
said
knew
firmly,
that he had no way out.
"Okay, I agree.
The only way
Solar
now was
Sect
to kill
Master
Yi
said,
Xian,
gritting
his
his teeth.
teeth. Only
Corpse
then could
Puppet
he
Sect
suppress
also
this
agrees.
rebellion.
Yi
Corpse
Tian,
Puppet Sect
don't
Master
you want
nodded
the
fiercely.
position of Sect Master?
Although he was unwilling,
I'm afraid
he
you
knew
don't
how to
have
choose.
the ability to be
As
the
long
Lunar
as 9
Sky
mountains
Sect
loose
Master.
cultivator can
Boom.
kill this person,
Ice and snow whistled for
70% of the
30,000
spiritual
miles.
vein is fine.
The cold wind of
Flying
heaven and
Saint
earth
Sect
tore through
Master
the
said
sky.
in a deep
The
voice.
Lunar Sky Sect
Obviously,
Master's
they
robes
still
fluttered.
chose to give up
His cell
70%
integration
of
realm
the spiritual
cultivation
vein
base was
when their
released to
sect
the
was
extreme.
annexed. The entire
After all,
lunar
the
mountain was
spiritual
rumbling
vein could be
as
slowly
if it would
annexed in the
collapse at
future.
any moment.
However,
Mountain
if their
pulling,
sect was annexed
rumble,
by Yi Tian,
the Lunar
they
Sky
would have
Sect
nothing.
Master stood
Okay.
tall.
As
the
the
lunar
3
divine
sect
light
masters
illuminated the
agreed,
mountains
Sect
and
Master
rivers for
Juka took out a
thousands of
jade
miles.
token and muttered
His body
something.
expanded
Then
at a
he crushed the
terrifying
jade
speed.
token in his
He
hand.
directly turned
A
into a
faint beam
giant
of light shot
when
into
he
the
reached
void
out
and
with one
disappeared.
hand. Clearly,
Dozens of
this
icy
was a
mountains
type of
were sucked toward
communication
him.
jade talisman.
Die.
At
At
this
this moment,
moment,
sent the
the
message
lunar
was the
Sky
legendary
Sect
9
Master no
mountain
longer
wanderer.
held back.
A
His
sempiternal
100,000
realm
meter tall
existence
body
who had
traversed
once
heaven
opened
and
3
earth.
heavenly gates.
The dozens of icy
Snow bamboo
mountains
peak.
that were sucked toward
Yi
him
Xian
crazily
stood with his
smashed
hands
toward
behind
Yi
his
Xian.
back.
The Tao
Fatso
integration
Huang and
realm
Gu
allowed
Beichen
one
stood
to
on
move
his left
freely.
and right.
This was
A
the
bronze
terrifying
mirror
aspect
reflected
of the
the Tao
faces of the
integration
4
realm.
sect masters.
It was also the
Yi
reason
Xian
why the Lunar
and the
Sky
other
Sect
2 heard
Master
every
was
word of their
determined to kill Yi
conversation.
Xian.
Sir,
Child's play.
Fatso Huang's
Yi Xian
expression
smiled
changed
coldly.
drastically.
His aura
He
shook,
looked at Yi Xian
and his
entire
anxiously.
body expanded
Even
at
Gu
a
Beichen's
terrifying
expression
speed.
turned serious.
He also turned into
Open
a
the 3rd gate of
100,000 meter
heaven.
tall giant.
9 mountains loose cultivator.
When
Yi
he
Xian
swung
murmured,
his fists, heaven
a deep
and earth
look flashed
trembled.
across his
The
eyes.
2-fist auras
Now, as
seemed
long
to be
as he
able to
used the
shatter
great
the
technique,
sky.
he
They
could
carried a
intercept
mighty
this
force that could
communication
destroy
jade
all
token.
things.
However,
As they charged
Yi Xian
toward
did
the
not
lunar
do
Sky
so.
Sect Master.
Interesting. wrong.
Bam, bam,
you really
bam.
gave me a surprise.
Terrifying, too terrifying.
Yi Xian smiled and let the jade tokens were like large rotating stars. However,
they were
unstoppable
and
flashed
unbreakable.
across Yi Xian's
The dozens
of icy mountains were all shattered by his fist auras. The entire heaven and earth trembled violently.
Go
Chapter
to hell.
14:12.
The lunar sky sect
At the same
master
time,
roared furiously.
Lin Qing, one after another,
secretly
left
the
sect
techniques
that
gathered
night,
in his hands,
turning into a cold
the mountains
light
within
and
hundreds of
disappearing
millions
into
of
the
miles
distant
trembled.
horizon. The lunar
Obviously,
divine light that
she had
lit
gone
up
to
heaven
invite the
and
strongest
earth howled
seed,
and wreaked
all of
havoc
this
in the
fell
sky.
into Yi Xian's
It shot
eyes,
toward Yi Xian
but he
in a
did not
frenzy.
stop it.
You
and
really
allowed
are a
the
piece of
situation
trash
to develop.
Yi Xian
Mister,
smiled coldly.
are you really confident?
Perhaps the lunar
That's
sky
Huang
sect
frowned.
master's great
Obviously,
techniques
were
the plan of
extremely
the four
domineering
sect
in the
masters
eyes
had
of
made him
others.
serious.
However, in
What
his
will
eyes,
come will come.
they were practically
If we don't get rid of all the hidden dangers,
After all,
how can we
the
have a
techniques
foothold
that
in the
Yixian
northern star
cultivated
domain
were all supreme
Yixian
existences.
smiled indifferently.
His knowledge and
All right,
knowledge
the
of
two
great
of you can go
techniques and
cultivate
secret
in
techniques.
peace.
There
Was
is no
not
need to
something that the
monitor
lunar
them
sky
during
sect
this
master
period of
could
time.
compare to.
I have my
This
own
was
plans
because
for the
Yixian's
rest.
starting point was
After
too high.
Yixian finished
These seemingly
speaking,
fierce
he sat
great
cross-legged
techniques were
again.
simply unbearable
Wisps
to
of
him.
gray light lingered
Boom.
around his
Bury
body
the heavens
as he
and
entered
destroy
a
the
meditative
earth.
state.
Destroy the
After
mountains and
devouring
rivers.
Song Tian's
Yixian
cultivation,
took a step forward.
Yixian still
His
needed
entire
to
body
slowly
was like the
refine it.
heavens,
Although
and the
his
universe.
cultivation
He
didn't increase
exploded
in
with
the
an aura
slightest.
that could
The
suppress
energy
everything.
within his body
The
had
lunar
already
divine
been
light
compressed
that shot
to the
toward
limit,
him was shattered
causing
by
his
him.
battle prowess
His entire
to soar
body closed in on the
imperceptibly.
lunar sky
However,
sect master.
Yixian felt that
The
it was a
heaven-burying
pity.
light around
Although
him
the
made him
calamity
invulnerable.
transcender technique
His battle
and the
prowess could not
heaven-devouring
be
demonic
judged by the
art were
standards of a
powerful.
Tao-querying realm
Refining
cultivator.
Sangtian's cultivation could
Bang!
only
Yixian
increase
punched
his
out
cultivation
and directly
and
shattered
it did
the
not
lunar
help
divine
much in
light,
increasing his
that
realm.
terrifying fist
However,
aura could pierce
after
through the
devouring
heavens and earth.
Sangtian's cultivation,
This also caused the lunar
refining
sky
the
sect
purest
master
power
to
for
block
himself
it in
to
a panic.
absorb and refine.
His entire body
This
was
also
retreating
caused
rapidly.
Yixian's combat
Rumble.
strength to soar.
The lunar sky
As for
sect
that 9
master's
mountains
100,000
feet
feet
tall body,
the so-called strongest
shattered
seed
the icy
in
mountains.
his Tao protector.
Meanwhile,
Yixian was still
charged toward him
confident
in a
in
frenzy.
facing him.
Clearly,
After all,
in this
he
exchange,
also had many
the
trump
lunar
cards
sky
of his
sect
own.
master was
With
at a
his heaven-defying
disadvantage.
combat strength,
Yixian had the
he
absolute
believed that he would
advantage.
not be defeated.
As the saying goes, great Dao Tong Tian. For a
Chapter
person who wanted to become
1403.
an expert,
How is this
every
possible?
challenge was an
Sect
opportunity.
Master Jiu Chu
And these
looked on in
opportunities
shock.
were the methods
The other
to
sect
strengthen
masters were
oneself.
also stunned
Yixian
and could
also
not
wanted
believe
to
their
see
eyes.
what 9
A
mountains
Tao
Lu's
integration
cultivator,
realm
who
cultivator
had opened the third
was actually
heaven
being
gate,
suppressed
by a Tao
sleeves.
querying realm
This was
cultivator.
also to pave the way
This
for
had
his
completely
return to the
overturned
grand
their
central
understanding
region.
of the world.
After all,
Even though the
not
Tao
only were the
querying
great
three
central
realms
domain
was a huge
overseen
realm
by the strongest
and was
throughout the
divided into
ages,
3 levels,
but there were also
the
many
difference
great
between each
sections.
level was like heaven
So-called
and earth.
undying beings
But there was
were not
definitely
everywhere
a
in the
huge
great
gap.
central domain.
Perhaps there were
but he
ultimate
still had to
seeds
face
in the
them.
grand central
As
territory
Yixian entered
who could
cultivation,
cross realms and
Fatso
fight.
Huang and Gu
This was
Beichen
not
also
rare in the
turned and
chaotic
left.
world.
However,
the two of
sect
them
masters
continued
did
to
not
monitor the
expect such a
situation
person
of
to
to
appear
appear
in the North
North
Star domain.
and the lunar sky
That was
sect.
because the North Star
9
domain
Melodies
was
sect.
different from the
There was
Grand
no
Central
sky,
territory.
no earth, and only
This
silence.
place was bitterly
This
cold
was a space
and
devoid
lacked
of
cultivation
life,
resources.
and not even the
There
slightest
were also
sound
no
could be heard.
ultimate orthodoxy
The entire
stationed
pitch black
here.
space was
Therefore,
terrifyingly
there were
quiet.
very few monsters who could cross
Suddenly,
realms and fight.
A spark of light
the
broke
sect
this
masters
desolate
frowned as they
environment,
watched,
and a
and
pair
their
of
eyes
silent
gradually
eyes
lit
lit
up
up in
in
the
the
depths
depths
of space. Even Li Sangtian, who had always looked down on Yixian, frowned as he
The
looked
quiet
at
and
Yixian in
desolate
shock.
atmosphere was
This
broken.
person's identity
A series
is
of
definitely
slightly
not
slow
simple.
footsteps came
Suddenly,
from the depths
Li
of space,
Sangtian whispered,
and a lifeless
the other
figure
sect
slowly
masters
walked
nodded
out
slowly.
from the interior of
That
the
was because
space.
they had lived
This
for far
person's
too
figure
long
was as thin
and
as
had already
bones,
been cultivating
and his
in
withered
the North
yellow
Star
hair
domain
covered his face.
since the 10th
His
Eon
back
was
was
established.
stooped.
They
And
had
his
never heard of
footsteps were very
Yixian in
unsteady,
the North Star domain,
as if he was an
They
old
even
man who was
recognized
about
some
to
of the
step
great
into the yellow
cultivators
earth
in the 3
and
major
could pass
sects
away
of
at
the
any
North
time.
Star domain.
9 Melodies
However,
is in trouble,
Yixian
and my
was
time
definitely
is up.
not one of
The
them.
old man's voice
This also
was hoarse and
indirectly
stiff,
proved that
as if he
Yixian
had
was
not
not
spoken
spoken
for a
North
long
Star
time.
domain.
The
It was
eyes
very
covered by
likely
the withered
that
hair
Yixian
slowly
came from the
focused,
Grand
and
Central
a long-lost
territory.
spark of light
After
gradually
all,
gathered
such
in
a
his
terrifying
eyes.
expert
Sigh.
could only appear
Since
in the
ancient
Grand
times,
Central territory.
he let out a long sigh.
This was also an
and a
indisputable
sorrowful aura
fact in the
faintly
5
overflowed
regions
from
of
the
chaos.
old man.
Rumble.
A stream of blood
Heaven
flowed
and
from the
earth
corner
shook and
of his
rumbled
mouth
continuously,
and then slowly
although
fell to the
Yixian's
ground.
combat
A
strength was
walking
terrifying.
corpse, struggling
The
at
lunar
death's
sect
door.
master
I
was a
can be
Tao
considered to
integration
have
realm
dominated the
cultivator
world in
after
this
all.
lifetime.
She was not
But now,
completely
I
defenseless
don't have the
against
slightest
Yixian's
bit of my
terrifying
former
attacks.
glory.
This
I'm
also
neither a
caused
human
the two
nor
of them to
ghost.
fight crazily.
If I continue
Mountains
to live
and
like
rivers
this,
were destroyed.
how can I be 9
and the dome
mountains
trembled.
Lu's cultivator?
Both of them used
Forget
the
it.
Transcendence
Since
World
the 9
technique,
Melodies sect
and
is
each of
facing
their
a
attacks
calamity,
carried an
I'll
extremely
return the terrifying
might,
and leave my
it was
last
too much
legend
for
in
the
spectators to take
field.
in.
Cough, cough, cough.
A stream of heavenly river descended from the chaotic starry
violently,
sky,
and a
and was
stream of
directly
blood flowed
sucked
from the
over
corner
by
of his
Xian,
mouth,
then
making him
he
look
casually
extremely
threw it
miserable,
towards the lunar patriarch,
and also extremely
the lunar
old and weak.
patriarch also
Thump,
threw out a
thump,
great
thump.
art.
Nine
And
Mountains
crazily
Lose
clashed
cultivator
with
walked
Xian.
step by
Bang.
step toward the outside
Xian's
world.
battle prowess
Although
was
his
simply
steps were
too
unsteady,
terrifying.
With
Each
the
step
step
began
began
to
to
become more
tribulation
powerful,
transcend a
and
transformation.
his hunched figure
His
gradually
battle prowess
straightened.
wasn't
On this
inferior
day,
to the lunar
Nine
sect
Melodies'
masters at
divine
all.
sect erupted with light that reached the heavens.
Moreover,
The undulating
he faintly
mountain
suppressed
range
the
rumbled
lunar
and
sect
shook.
master.
That wisp
What
of
was even
immortal
more
divine
terrifying
light was vast
was
and
that
mighty.
Xian's every
And an
great
old
technique
man was strolling
caused
through
the
the
lunar
heavens
sect
toward
master
lunar heaven
to
sect.
retreat step by
This was
step.
a great figure
This was
who
still
had opened the
Xian
third gate of
intentionally
heaven,
concealing his
when
identity,
Nine Mountains Lose
and not using
cultivator
his
walked
most
in the
powerful
northern star
technique.
field.
After
It
all,
immediately caused
something
a
as
great
obvious
uproar.
as a
On the
space-time
other
technique
side,
would be
Lin
recognized by
Qing
these
bowed
people at a
nervously
glance.
to one side.
Otherwise,
And a man in black
it would be
stood
even
with
more
his hands
difficult for
behind
the
his
lunar
back,
sect master
listening
to resist.
to Lin Qing,
Boom,
or telling him
the
something.
two of them fought from the
God's
sky
son
to the
Huai
ground.
Mia.
And
Please
then
lend
from
a
the
hand
ground
to
to
save our
sky.
six sects
Everywhere
from the
they
fire
went,
and water.
mountains and
In the
rivers
future,
turned into ashes.
Our six sects
Even
will
the
definitely
boundless
not
cold
forget your
mountains
kindness.
turned into ashes.
Lin Qing or
When the
kowtowed.
two of them reached
You
the
said that
climax
the other
of their
party
battle,
has the potential
they
of an
actually
ultimate
broke through
seed,
the Bachan star
and his
field,
cultivation
and
has
directly
already
entered
reached
the
the
vast
realm.
chaotic starry
And he
sky.
even defeated
They were like two meteors
The man in black
intertwining with
slowly
each other,
turned around and
erupting
looked at
with
Lin
dazzling
Qing in
light.
surprise.
Time passed.
If Yi Xian
and
was
the sun
here,
and moon
he
alternated,
would definitely realize
except
that
for
the
a
man
few
in
sect
black
masters
masters
who
who
could
could
faintly
faintly
see
see
the
the
two
two
of
of
them
them
fighting in the chaotic starry sky. The people of the other six sects
Millions
could
of years
only wait
ago,
anxiously.
he was still at
a
the
good
extreme
alliance
realm,
meeting had
but now
unexpectedly
millions
turned
of
into
years
an
later,
internal strife
he
of
had
the
already
lunar
reached
sect,
the Dao querying
obviously,
realm,
and was
only
one of the two
ultimate
of them
seeds.
could survive.
That's right.
And the one who
the other
survived
party
would
has
be the
indeed
lunar
defeated
sect
Li
master.
Sangtian.
However,
And even killed the
no one
master
noticed
of the
that
lunar
a heavenly
heavenly
man
sect,
in a golden
and now
battle
he wants
robe
to annex
was
the
chatting
six
with
sections.
Fatso Huang.
Lin
If Yi
Qing
Xian was
hurriedly
present,
replied,
he would
to go
definitely
against
see
an
that this
immortal
young
with his
man
Dao
in a
realm
golden battle
cultivation.
robe was Gu Bachan.
Even if he's just
After
at the
so
initial
many
stage
years
of the immortal
Gu
realm,
Bachan's cultivation
such a battle
had already
record
reached
is enough
the
to
ninth
shock
heaven
anyone
Saint
in the
King
Grand
realm.
Central
He was
Territory.
also the number one
Song
spirit
Huai Mia's
son of the
eyes were
solar
deep.
sect.
He truly
It could
did
be
not
said that
believe
apart
what
from
Lin
the
Qing
solar
or
sect
just
master
said.
and some
One
elders,
must know that even
he
if
could
he
be
was the
considered an
successor of an
outstanding
utmost
talent
powerful
among the
orthodoxy,
younger generation,
and had cultivated
Fatso
the
Huang,
undying
do you
immortal
think Sir
scripture,
can kill the
it
lunar
was
old
still
devil?
an impossible
Gu
task
Bachan
for him to
secretly
go against
transmitted
a
his
never-wither
voice,
state being
obviously,
and defeat the
he
other
missed
party.
Yi Xian very much.
According to what
Brat,
Song Huai Mia knew,
although you and I have
among
left
the
Sir for
ultimate
many
seeds
years,
in the entire
you
Grand
still don't know
Central
what kind of
Territory,
person he is.
there were only a
Even if
handful
the lunar
of people
old devil
who
is
could
in
go
the path
against an
integration
immortal realm
realm cultivator
I think that
at the
since
Dao
Sir dared to
realm.
attack,
However,
it means that
these
the lunar
people
old
were too
devil
heaven
won't
defying,
survive.
and
Song
Fatso Huang
Mia
was extremely
was definitely
certain.
not one
But
of them.
Bachan, the reason
Although
why
you
he
are a
came to
ninth
the
heaven
North Star
Saint King
territory
now,
was
I have
because
just
he knew
received
that
the
the
North
North
Star
Star
technique
technique
from
was
Sir.
filled with massacres.
It won't take long for
and
me
this
to
was
catch
the
up
best
to you.
battlefield
When
for
the
him
time comes,
to quickly
how about
raise
we
his
spar?
cultivation.
Fatso
What's the
Huang
name of
looked
this
relaxed.
person?
He
Song
was not
Huai
worried
Mia
about
frowned.
Yi Xian's safety.
Tian.
Instead,
Lin
he
Qing
teased Fatso
hurriedly
Huang.
replied.
After all,
Tian, Gu Bachan
Song
always
Huai Mia's
mocked him
brows
for
were
his weak
tightly knitted.
cultivation whenever
He had
they
never
met.
heard of this
This
name
was
before,
a rare opportunity
and there
to
was
anger
no
him.
such person among
So
the
Fatso
ultimate
Huang
seeds.
naturally would not
This
let it
person
go.
is either an
Don't
old
be too
monster,
smug,
or he's
after I
hiding his
see Sir's
identity.
supreme technique,
Otherwise,
you will still
to be
be
able
left
to go
behind by
against an
me.
immortal realm
Gu Bachan
cultivator at the
retorted
Dao
sarcastically.
realm.
Another
With his
7
combat
days and
strength,
7 nights passed.
It's impossible for him to be a nobody.
The battle
Song
in the
Huai Mia
chaotic
concluded.
starry sky gradually came to an end. Even the power that erupted began to weaken. However, it was
Chapter
also on this day that a
14:13.
terrifying black
Godchild,
fog
please lend our
covered the
six
vision of
sects
the
a
5
hand.
sect masters.
Lin Qing
There
hurriedly
was also a
asked for
shrill
help.
cry.
All right,
What's the
I would
outcome?
also like to see who
The
this
solar
person
sect
is.
master
To
looked at
think
Li
that there would be
Sangtian in
such a
confusion,
person in this small
because his
North Star
Dharma I
field.
could not see
I
the
am very
situation in the
interested in this
chaotic starry
person.
sky.
Song
And
Huai Mia
because the
sneered.
terrifying black
Thank you,
fog was too
Godchild.
mysterious,
Lin Qing
it was
finally let out
impossible
a
to
sigh
know
of
who won the
relief.
battle.
Her mission
However,
was finally
Li Sangtian,
completed.
who
You
was
can
in the
leave
immortal
now.
realm,
Tomorrow,
might be
I
able
will
to
follow
know
you
the
to the
outcome
lunar
of the
sky
battle.
sect.
This,
As soon
Li
as Song
Sangtian
Huai Mia
frowned,
finished speaking,
because his Dharma
Lin
I was
Qing
also
hurriedly
blocked.
excused
He
herself.
could only vaguely
As
see
she
2
left,
figures
a
entangled
burly
in the
figure
black
quietly
fog.
appeared
He did
behind
not know
Song
who
Huai
won
Mia.
and who lost.
Huai Mia,
Moreover,
why are you
for some
meddling in
reason,
other people's
when Li
business?
Sangtian saw the
This
black
person's
fog,
body was
he
burly
suddenly felt
and
a
filled
sense
with
of fear in
explosive
his
muscles.
heart.
It was
His
as
red
though the
hair was
black
like a
fog was
raging
nurturing
fire,
something terrifying.
although there was no aura
Dong,
coming
dong,
from his
dong.
body. Suddenly,
Just looking
just
at
as
him
everyone
would
was
make one
guessing
feel
the
a sense
outcome,
of reverence.
they saw a figure
Taoist
walking
scarlet
down
flame,
from the starry
immortal
sky.
realm
With
cultivation
every step
base,
he took,
and an
heaven and
existence
earth
who had
rumbled.
opened the
It's
second
him.
gate of heaven.
Li
He Tian
was also
muttered in
Tsang
shock,
Huimia's
because
guardian
the person
in the
who
North Star
returned
field.
from the chaotic
Putting
starry
aside his
sky was
identity
Yi
as a
Xian.
guardian,
What shocked
Daoist
Tsang Tian
Scarlet
the
Flame
most was that
also
Yi
Tsang
Xian's
Huimia's
aura was
uncle.
actually twice
It could
as
be said that he
terrifying as
treated
before.
Tsang Huimia as his own son.
Extremely strange.
Logically speaking,
Li Tsangtian was
Tsang
not
Huimia's
surprised that
position
Yi
in the
Xian
Immortal
could
Heaven
return
Palace.
victorious. He did not
After
have the
all,
qualifications
he had
to
already
have a guardian.
suspected that Yi
After
Xian
all,
came from the
he was
central
only in the
region.
middle among
What
the
truly
ultimate
shocked
seeds.
him was that after
Although
such
he
a
also had
terrifying
an
battle,
extremely
Yi
terrifying
Xian's aura
monstrous
did not
talent.
decrease but
He was not
increased
the most
instead.
outstanding
This
among
was
the
what
ultimate
shocked him the
seeds.
most.
However,
Old Man
Tsang
Taiyin,
Huimia had
how
a
is this
huge family
possible?
behind him.
Suddenly,
This family
the
was
solar sect
comparable
master
to a great
roared in
sect,
shock, and
his
Daoist
pupil
Scarlet Flame
constricted,
was a member
and
of
the
this
other
family.
sect masters
It could
looked
be
at
said
Yi
that
Xian
Daoist
again.
Scarlet
They
Flame
saw Yi Xian
and the
walking
family
towards
behind
them
him
with a bloody head in his
greatly to
hands.
Tsang Huimia
This head
reaching
belonged
his
to none
current
other
level.
than the lunar
Great
sect
uncle,
master,
the North
who
Star
had just fought a
Starfield is
crazy
bitterly
battle
cold.
with Yi Xian.
Now that someone has suddenly appeared, someone who can defy the immortal realm, Chapter
Your nephew is
1404.
naturally very
A
curious.
bloody head rolled in
I
the
also
center
want
of
to
the
see who
venue
this person
until
is.
it fell at the feet
After
of
all,
the 5
the
sect
great era
masters.
struggle has already
The lunar
begun.
sect masters'
Everyone
eyes
is
were wide
eyeing
open,
the position of the
unable to
strongest
close in
for
the
a
next
long
Yuan
time.
Hui.
At this
Perhaps
moment,
this
it was
person
very
will
quiet.
also be my future
Not only
enemy.
was it quiet,
Song
but it was an
Huaimia said in a deep
indescribable
voice.
silence.
Huaimia,
The disciples
you
of
are
the
the last
sixth hope
sex
of
were
our
dead silent.
clan.
And
The
the
clan
faces
leader
of the
went to
5
the
sect
ancestral
masters
land
were
of the
heavy.
space beasts
The entire
to
venue
ask for
could
a
be
heavenly
said to be
beast
so
pill for you.
quiet
That
that
once
once
you
you hear a
reach
pin
the
drop,
immortal level
no
in the
one
shortest
dared to
time
make the
possible.
slightest sound.
Nothing
That
can
Wai
happen
Yixian
to you
slowly
during this
exhaled
time.
a mouthful
This
of
is
turbid
why I
air,
accompanied you to
and
the
the
North
power
Star
around his
field to
body
train.
gradually dissipated.
Scarlet Flame Taoist
Only
said
the occasional
sternly.
flash of
Don't
light
worry,
in his
great
eyes
uncle.
proved
Your
that
nephew
he was in
believes
an
that his
excellent
cultivation
state at this
base
moment.
is outstanding
No
amongst
one
the
knew how
3
the
Dao
lunar
querying
sect master
realms.
died.
Besides,
And only
with you
Yixian
by my
knew how
side,
he killed the lunar
there is
sect
no one in
master.
the entire
After
northern
fighting
star
for a long
domain who
time
can
in the
threaten
chaotic
us.
starry sky,
Even the 3 great
Yixian
sects of the
finally
northern
used his
region
most powerful
would not dare
technique.
to offend us.
This was the product of
Song
the
Huaimia
combination
said
of the
proudly.
calamity transcender technique and the heaven-devouring demonic
Huaimia,
art.
you mustn't
It could be called the
complacent.
complete
Although the
heaven-devouring
northern star
demonic
field
art.
is bitterly
Although
cold,
the
and
heaven-devouring
there are very
demonic
few
art
immortal
that the
realm
heaven-devouring
cultivators here,
demon lord passed
it doesn't
to
mean that
Yixian
you and I
had
can
a lot
do
of
whatever
flaws.
we want.
We still have
didn't
to be
need to
careful
cultivate
until
the
the
other
patriarch
party's technique
asks
at
for the
all.
heavenly beast
He only
pill.
needed to
This
comprehend
is the
its
most
profound
important
meaning
thing,
and integrate
Taoist
it
Scarlet
with the
Flame
calamity
side.
transcender
After
technique
all,
into the
Song
heaven
Huaimia
burial
was
art.
Taoist Scarlet
This had
Flame's
already
favorite
become one of
nephew.
his trump
He
cards.
couldn't bear to be too
Under the
harsh on him.
combination of the calamity
However,
transcender
Taoist
technique
Scarlet Flame
and
didn't
the
think it was a
heaven-devouring
big deal.
demonic art,
There was no
the
harm in
lunar sect
accompanying
master
Song
suffered a
Huaimia
great calamity,
to the Grandine
even
Sky
though she
sect.
was at the Dao
In
integration
fact,
realm.
Taoist Scarlet
Her
Flame
entire
looked down on the
cultivation
immortal
base was
realm
swallowed by
cultivators of the
Yixian,
northern region.
and Yixian even
After
cut
all,
off her head.
it was impossible
Sect
to
Master
create a
Yi,
powerful
you killed her
immortal
well.
realm cultivator.
This person is
in
not
such a
worthy of
bitterly
being the
cold
lunar sect
environment.
master at all.
Moreover, according to Lin
Fatso
Qing'er,
Huang roared,
the opponent was
and as
only
if there
a
was a
Dao
chain
querying realm
reaction,
cultivator.
a large number
With his
of
second
lunar
gate of
sect
heaven
disciples
open,
echoed.
killing a
Perhaps
Dao
it was
querying
because
realm
the situation
cultivator
was hopeless,
was as easy as
or
flicking
perhaps
his
it was
finger.
because the monkeys
Song
scattered
Huaimia
when the
wouldn't
tree
be in
fell.
any danger.
But the
As
4
for
grand
Lin
elders
Qing,
looked at
or
each other,
saying that the
and
opponent
seemed to see the
defeated Li
fear in
Zongtian,
each other's eyes.
Taoist
They
Scarlet
bowed to
Flame thought it was a
Yixian one
joke.
after another,
Although he hadn't
and words
seen
of
Li
praise
Zongtian
came from their
before.
mouths.
Taoist Scarlet
Vice Sect
Flame
Master Yi
had inquired
please
about the
ascend
power
to the
structure
position
of the
Sect
Northern
Master
Star domain.
under the leadership
Li
of Sect
Zongtian
Master
had
Yi.
just stepped into
Our
the
lunar
immortal
heavenly
realm
sect
a million
will
years
definitely
ago.
prosper.
In his eyes,
The 4
he
grand
wasn't even
elders
worth
called out
mentioning.
loudly,
He
showing
probably
their
wasn't even
allegiance to
familiar
Yixian.
with the true means
As the 4
of
grand
immortal
elders
realm
expressed their
cultivator.
stance,
It wasn't
the people
impossible
of the
for
lunar
him to
sect
die in the
all
hands
echoed
of
in
a Dao
agreement.
querying realm
At that
cultivator.
moment, the
Since
Sun
we
Moon
have
Sect
nothing to
Master
do,
was dead.
Uncle will
Since
accompany you
Yixian
on a
was able
tour
to
of the
kill the
northern
Sun Moon
region.
Sect Master,
Wait for the patriarch to
proved
send
that
us a
Yixian
message
was
to get
stronger
the
than the
heavenly
Sun
beast
Moon
pills.
Sect Master.
Then we will
position
return to
of
the
Sect
Central
Master
region.
belonged to him.
Taoist
The
Scarlet
North Star
Flame said
domain
in a
was
deep
just
voice.
that cruel.
Many
It was
thanks,
a bloody
Uncle.
description
Song
of this
Huaimia
cruel
bowed.
world.
Grandine
This was the
Sky
so-called
Sect's
survival of
bamboo
the
peak.
fittest. Time passed like water.
A month's
Only the
time
strong who
passed in the
survived
blink
would
of
be
an
looked
eye
up
in
to
the
by
eyes
other
of cultivators.
and a dead
The
person
1
would
month
not be
deadline
able
for
to cause any
Yixian,
waves.
and the 4
Much
sect
less have the
masters
so-called
had
loyalty
finally
to
arrived
avenge
that
the
a
lunar
mouthful
sect
of
master
turbid air
from
blasted
Yixian.
apart the sea
Since
of
everyone
clouds in
has
front of
elected
him.
me as the
The
new sect
terrifying
master,
air current howled,
then this Yi will
and
not
lasted for
decline
a
this
full 10 breaths of
responsibility.
time before calming
Yixian
down.
smiled
At
faintly.
this moment,
He would not
Yixian
decline
also
with
slowly
so-called
opened his
modesty.
eyes.
After
all,
waiting for a
he
month,
had chosen to be the
Yixian
master
had
of the
finally
lunar
refined
heavenly
Li
sect.
Zongtian's cultivation
Naturally,
for his own
he would
use.
control the
Although
entire
he had
lunar
only
heavenly
obtained
sect.
30% of
No,
the pure
not
and
only
flawless
controlled the
cultivation
lunar
base,
heavenly sect.
it was enough
A
for
small
Yixian's
lunar
combat
heavenly
strength
sect was not
to
in
undergo an
Yixian's eyes.
earth-shattering change.
Yixian's ambition
In fact,
was not limited
according
to
to
this.
Yixian's
He
thoughts,
wanted to control
he should
the
step
entire
into
North
the Dao
region
integration
alliance,
stage
and
as
more
soon as
importantly,
possible.
he wanted
Only
to
then
become
would he
the
have enough
so-called king of
confidence
the
to
North
fight
region.
9 mountains
In
lose
Yixian's
cultivator.
eyes,
However,
the so-called
there
orthodoxy
wasn't enough
was
time
not worth
now.
mentioning at all.
Stepping into the Dao
Only by
integration
becoming
stage
stronger
wasn't a
the right
matter of
path.
time.
However,
It was a kind
on
of
the path of
opportunity and
cultivation,
opportunity. Being able to control a region was beneficial to his own cultivation.
Now,
Yixian didn't
clap,
even have the
clap.
time to comprehend
Li
the Dao
Xingtian clapped his
integration
hands
stage
and laughed heartily.
let alone the so-called
He walked slowly
opportunity
towards
and
Yixian and
opportunity.
said,
Wonderful, truly
Fatso
wonderful.
Huang and Gu
My
Beichen
fellow
hurried
Taoist
over.
friend's scheming
Yixian
has really
also
impressed
slowly
me.
got up.
Let's go.
Unfortunately,
Let's
Yixian
see what
did
other
not
tricks the
react
four
to Li
sect
Xingtian's
masters have up
sarcastic
their
words.
sleeves. Instead,
Yixian
he
took a
sat on
step
the
forward
futon in a
and headed
dignified
towards
manner,
the heavenly
as if Li
mountain.
Xingtian was
Fatso
invisible.
Huang and Gu
Since I
Beichen
am the
followed
lunar
closely
sect
behind.
master,
Then I have the right to
instantly
speak about the
disappeared from the
division
snow
of this
bamboo
spirit
vein.
peak.
The
Heavenly
sect of ether
mountain
wants
peak.
to take 40%
The four sect
of it.
masters looked
But
calm,
we, the lunar
but
heavenly
their
sect,
eyes were filled with
naturally
anxiety.
will not agree.
They kept looking into the
Yixian
distance
said
from the
indifferently,
corner of their eyes.
Li
Clearly,
Xingtian laughed.
a month had passed.
However, his laughter
but 9
was very
mountains
cold.
lose cultivator,
He looked at
and the
Yixian
strongest
with narrowed
seed had
eyes
yet
and
to
said,
appear. Then
What should we
according to
do?
my fellow
Do we
Taoist
really
friend's
have to
opinion,
submit to him?
how much should the
Flying
sect of
Saint
Ether
sect
take?
master asked
And
anxiously.
how much should the lunar
Fellow
heavenly
Taoist
sect take?
Jiu-Chu.
Not
Will
much.
9 mountains
The
lose
lunar
cultivator
heavenly
come or
sect will
not?
take 30%
Extreme
of the
young
spirit
sect
vein,
master asked.
and the remaining
At this
70%
moment,
will be
Jiu-Chu
divided
sect
among
master
the
was
5
also
sections.
frowning.
There
Yi
was panic
Xian's
in her
words were
eyes.
simply earth-shattering.
Clearly, she wasn't
Instantly,
sure if
the
9
entire
mountains
place
lose
became
cultivator
silent.
would come or not.
Arrogant.
After all,
Audacious.
today was a month's
Ignorant.
time. All
If
kinds
9
of words
mountains lose
appeared in the
cultivator
minds of
didn't
the
come.
6 sections.
They only had 2
Everyone
choices.
looked at Yi Xian.
They could either fight
as
to
if
the
they were
death
looking
with
at a
Yi
lunatic
Xian
or submit to
the
him.
disciples of the
However,
other
they
5
didn't want
sects
to
were
do
fine.
either.
At
But the
this moment,
disciples of the
they were
lunar
burning
heavenly
with
sect
anxiety
had
and
complicated
were a little
expressions.
flustered.
Although they were very
3
surprised
streams of
by
light
Yi
shot
Xian's
over.
exorbitant
Yi
demand,
Xian
and
Everyone
the
in the
two
lunar
quietly
heavenly
appeared
sect
in front
knew
of the
that
4
such a
sect
thing was
masters.
simply unrealistic.
This also made the panicked
Not to
sect
mention
masters
whether the other
expressions
4
change
sect
slightly.
masters would agree.
They forced themselves to calm
Li Sangtian,
down.
An
A
immortal
month's
realm
time is
being
up. Would
have the 4
definitely
of you
not
made
agree.
your decision?
He was not the
Yi
lunar
Xian
heavenly
said
sect
calmly,
master,
although there
but
was
a
no
living
power
sect
around
master.
him.
His
The difference
eyes
between
on
the
the
immortal
four of
realm
them. It
and
could
the
be
immortal
said that
realm
he
was
gave
like
the 4
heaven
sect
and earth.
masters a lot
Even
of
though
pressure.
Li Sangtian had just entered the immortal realm,
he was definitely not someone that Yi Xian could resist.
Chapter
Yi
14
Xian dared to say
14.
such arrogant
Yi
words.
Dao Yu.
The unification of the 6 sects is a huge
If he wasn't
matter.
courting death,
Why don't you
what
take
was?
70%
At
of
this
the
moment,
spirit vein?
The 4
And we
sect
can
masters
discuss the
had strange
unification of the
expressions.
6 sects later.
Logically speaking,
Sect
it
Master
was simply
Corpse
impossible for Yi
carefully
Xian
to take
Yi
30%
Xian
of the
smiled
spirit vein
and looked at the
However,
other 3 sect
Yi
masters.
Xian had just killed
Do
the
the 3
lunar
of you have
heavenly
the
sect
same
master.
idea?
As a
Looking
Dao
at Yi
querying
Xian's
realm
smiling
cultivator.
face,
The 4
3
sect masters
were
were
startled.
that Yi Xian
Flying
was not
Saint
simple.
sect master
At
forced
this
a
moment,
smile.
they were
Yi
happy
Dao
to be
Yu.
bystanders.
It's not that we
and
don't
see
want
what
the
Yi
6
Xian would
sects
do.
to be united.
30%.
But there are too
Li
many things
Sangtian put on
involved.
a fake smile.
I hope that you can
This
make an
was no
exception.
longer a simple
We need to
discussion
discuss
on how
the
to divide the
unification of the
spirit
6
vein.
sects at length.
It was Yi Xian looking down on his
Yi
authority.
Xian was smiling.
You are just a
but
puny
his smile
Dao
was
querying
very
realm
cold.
cultivator.
A trace of
You only
viciousness
killed the
curled
lunar
up from the
heavenly
corner
sect
of his
master.
mouth.
And
As
he
he
dared to
slowly
ask
walked
for
towards the
30%.
4 great sect
Aren't you
masters.
afraid of death? I am a very reasonable
The
person.
immortal divine light
I have already
pierced through
given
the
the 4 of
galaxy.
you a month's
That
time
immortal
to consider.
divine might was
But you have
released,
disappointed
causing
me.
the mountains
Yi
and
Xian
rivers
said
to rumble.
coldly.
Li
Yi Dao
Yu,
was
are you
truly
trying to
enraged
threaten us?
because Yi
Sect
Xian was
Master
challenging
Jiu-Chu's
his
face
authority.
turned red as
He
fear
was the
flashed
leader
across
of the
his
6
eyes.
major sections.
After all,
although
Yi
Li
Xian had
Sangtian
killed
did
the
not
moon
dare
sect
to say that he
master,
controlled
and
the
Li
6 major
Sangtian must
sects.
have died in his
His
hands
words
as well.
were absolute.
Just this
If he
battle
did not
record was
teach
enough
Yi
to
Xian a
let the
lesson,
4 sect masters
how would he be
know
able
that
to
they were
control
no
the
match
6
for
major
Yi Xian?
sects? I will
Aren't you
only
afraid
give you
of
2
biting your
choices.
tongue?
Either
want
you
to
kneel
kill me?
down and submit
Can you
to
do
me,
it?
and the
Yi
6
Xian
sects
stood
will
up
become
slowly.
one.
His
Or all
eyes were
4
like
of
the
you will
stars
die
in
here
the
today.
sky.
A
At this
wisp of
moment,
gray light
Yi Xian
circulated around
completely
his
shed
body,
all pretense
and
of
his aura
cordiality.
was rising terrifyingly. The 4
After
sect
devouring
masters'
the
faces
cultivation
turned green
base of the
as they
lunar
looked at
heavenly
Yi
sect
Xian with
master.
shame and anger.
Yi Xian might not
However,
have stepped
they did
into
not
the
dare
Dao
to attack
comprehending
Yi
realm.
Xian.
Boom,
But his
boom, boom.
cultivation base
Suddenly,
was condensed,
the clouds
and
in
the
the
energy
sky
in his
rumbled,
body was
and the
compressed
mountains
to the
and
extreme.
rivers within 80,000
Lad,
miles
no matter what
shook
your identity
violently.
is,
I don't care where you came
stepped
from.
on the dome.
I'm afraid it's
and
impossible
walked
for
the
you to
heavenly
leave safely
divine
today.
mountain.
The
Boom.
terrifying
Li
roaring waves
Sangtian
of
took a
qi
step
whistled
forward,
over,
and
and
the
a
entire
terrifying
lunar
pressure
immortal
that
mountain
was like
trembled.
the heavens and
The
earth
ground
grew in the
beneath his
world.
feet cracked like
The
a spider
ancient
web.
web domain
and
is
the
a place where
terrifying
the
cracks
heavens and earth
continued to
exist
spread out
forever.
in all directions.
Little friend,
Sure,
you are
I
so
would like to
arrogant
see
with
if you
your
have
mere
the
Dao
capability to
comprehending
do
realm
so.
cultivation.
Boom.
Aren't you
Yi
afraid
Xian
that
stood
one
up
day
slowly.
your soul
The
will
heaven
be
burial
scattered?
technique was
Thump,
circulating
thump, thump.
furiously
It
in
was
his
as
body.
if the war drums
His
of the
essence,
9
energy,
heavens
and
were
spirit
beating,
were raised to
as
the
if the
extreme.
stars of the
This
universe
was the
were
first
falling.
time Yi Xian
As the 9
was
mountains
using his
lose
true
cultivator
cultivation
walked
base
towards the tiny
to fight
divine
against
mountain,
an immortal realm
his stooped
cultivator.
figure gradually
This battle
straightened.
would test his
His
true
withered hair
strength
became crystal
and was
clear,
also an opportunity
and a terrifying
for him
power
to step
that could
into
push
the
the
Dao
heavens and
comprehending
earth pressed down on Yi Xian. At this moment, the Nine Mountains itinerant cultivator
Chapter
had returned to his
1405.
peak.
Yi
He had
Xian
been
wasn't
silent
too
for
sure how
countless
strong
years,
the Immortal Realm
but
was.
at this moment,
But
he was shining
some of the
once
veteran
more.
Immortal Realm
Bang, bang,
experts
bang.
from the
The
heaven
heavens and
sect.
earth rumbled as
In Yi
three
Xian's
beams of
opinion,
light flickered
they were
behind the
simply
Nine
invincible.
Mountains loose cultivator.
Even if it was
the current him. If he were to face an experienced Immortal
They
Realm
quickly
expert
formed
like
three mysterious
Master
heavenly
Wuxian,
gates.
Yi
And a
Xian wouldn't
terrifying
hesitate
power
to
that
turn
was
around
like the
and leave.
eternal blue sky
However,
emerged from
Li
them.
Songtian had
Greetings,
just
Senior
entered the
Nine
Immortal
Mountains.
Realm,
Sect
and Yi
Master
Xian was
Juku was
confident
overjoyed
that he
and
could
bowed
take
his
him
head.
on.
If
The
he
other
could
three
defeat
sect masters
Songtian,
also knelt
it would
down.
be an unimaginable
The 4 sect
improvement for
masters'
Yi
faces
Xian.
were filled with
Regardless
excitement
of cultivation
and the
or mental
nervousness
state,
and panic in
this
their
battle
eyes
was too
instantly
important for Yi
disappeared.
Xian.
If he could defeat Li
Suddenly,
Songtian,
thousands of
it would
streams
mean
of
that he
light
would be
shot over from all
qualified to return
directions.
to the central
They were
great
the
region
disciples of
when
the
he
6
stepped
sects
into
who
the
had
Immortal
hurried
Realm.
over.
Even
Among
if he
them,
had to face
the
veteran
4 grand
Immortal
elders
Realm
of the
experts
Tine
like
heavenly
sect
sect
master
had red
Wuxian,
faces.
he would
as they
still
led
be
a
able
large
to
number
wrestle
of
with
people
them,
towards the
and
mountain
he would have
peak.
the confidence
The
to
Taiyan
protect
heavenly
himself.
sect greets Senior
Moreover,
Nine Mountains.
once Yi
Please
Xian
help us
stepped
get
into
rid
the
of this
immortal
great
realm,
demon.
he would be
The 4
qualified
grand
to pursue
elders
the
knelt
seat of
down
the strongest
and called
throughout
out
the
the 9
ages and
mountains
fight with them head-on.
Luthor name.
Brat,
This
you have
made the
successfully
disciples behind them
me.
have
Let me
complicated
send you on
expressions.
your way.
But they still knelt down.
said coldly,
to be
as his
honest,
immortal realm
these
aura
disciples
pierced
still
through
had
the
a good
sky.
impression of
He
Yi
extended
Xian.
his 5
At the
fingers
very
towards
least,
Yi Xian.
Yi Xian
And the
stood up
heaven
for
and
them
earth
at the
seemed to
critical
freeze
moment,
as a terrifying
and even
giant
fought for
hand
the
pressed
spirit
down
vein
on
for
Yi
them.
Xian.
But in
Star
the
River
end,
Blade,
Yi Xian was
in
still
terms
an
of
outsider.
secret techniques,
The Taiyan heavenly
Xian
sect
wasn't
master
afraid of
was
anyone.
killed by him.
At this
And
moment,
the 4
his
grand
essence,
elders had
energy
great
and
prestige
spirit
in
were
the
at the
sect.
peak.
These
And he could
disciples
casually
still
execute
chose the
the
4
primal
grand
chaos
elders.
grand technique.
Moreover,
This
the
was
9
also
mountains
his Tao.
Lu's cultivator
Rumble.
had arrived.
The 9 rivers
This big
Star
shot
River
was
swept
definitely
through the
not
heaven
Li
and
Sangtian.
earth. And
He
the
had
primal
been famous
chaos,
in the northern
heavenly
region
river
for tens of millions
past
of years
and present,
and was a
thousands of
terrifying
miles of
existence
Star
who had
River
opened the
cascaded
third heavenly
down from the
gate.
primal chaos
As the
starry
saying
sky,
goes,
and
a wise
blasted a
man
hole in the
submits to
firmament.
circumstances.
Today,
Just as Yi Xian was definitely going to
the
die,
Star River
even if
cascaded
these
down
sect
on Li
disciples had an
Sangtian
extremely
and turned
good
into a
impression
blade
of Yi Xian.
radiance.
The
They
blade
could only
radiance
choose
was
to stand on the
invincible,
side of the
and
4
it slashed down on Li
elders in this
Sangtian.
situation.
Be careful.
Yi Xian
The
chose to
expressions
ignore
of
the
the crowd
sect
fawning.
leaders changed
Instead,
drastically.
he narrowed his
They all
eyes and
unleashed
looked at the 9
unparalleled
mountains
great
Lu's
techniques
cultivator.
to cover the
A
entire
fierce
divine
look flashed
Taiyan
across
mountain.
his eyes.
This was because
9
the
mountains
attacks
Lu's
from the 2 of them
cultivator.
were too
Yi
terrifying.
Xian muttered. The disciples
Strong,
of their sects
very
were all
strong.
here.
So
If they did
strong
not
that
do
Yi Xian
anything to
shuddered.
protect them,
A
they
sempiternal
would
realm
definitely
expert
be reduced
who had
to
opened the
ashes
3rd
by the
heavenly
attacks
gate
from the 2 of them.
This gave Yi
Bang!
Xian a feeling
The
that he could
gigantic
not
heavenly
resist.
palm and
Even
galaxy
if he had
saber
stepped
clashed
into the
together
integration
in
realm,
millions of miles
he would
of heaven
definitely
and
not
earth
be a
tremble.
match for
Yi
unfettered
Xian
9
and Li
mountain.
Sangtian were
Let
both
alone
sent
now
flying,
that he was in the
crashing
Tao
into
comprehension
countless
realm.
mountains that Yi
Perhaps the
Xian
9
turned
mountains
around and
Lu's
returned.
cultivator could not
His
be
entire
compared
body
to a
was as
veteran
terrifying as a
sempiternal realm
star as he
expert,
pounced towards
like
Li
Sect Master
Sangtian
Wuxian,
with unparalleled
but he was
killing
definitely
intent.
much
How could he be
stronger
at a
than Li
disadvantage?
Sangtian.
Yi
Your
Xian
courting
believed
death.
in his
Li
intuition.
Sangtian was
Unless
enraged.
he could use the future transformation technique.
Although he expected
would definitely
Yi Xian
not
to be
be a
strong,
match for the
he
9
didn't
mountains
expect
Lu's
Yi
cultivator to be
even
so
if he
strong
used
that
all
he
his
could
trump
withstand
cards.
his immortal great
The difference
technique.
in cultivation
This
was
made him
too
gradually
obvious.
treat Yi Xian as an opponent on the same level. Not only
Kill,
was the 9
heaven
mountains
cleaving
Lu's
blade,
cultivator
immortal
one realm
God's
higher
might.
than him,
That milky
but he
white
was also
halo
an
scattered
existence
around
who
Li
had opened the
Sangtian's
3rd
body
heavenly
as
gate.
mysterious runes
9
lit
up
up
in
in
front
front
of
of
him.
him.
His
The aura
heavenly
was
gate
even more
opens.
terrifying than
This
before.
meant that there were a
What was
total of
immortal?
9 heavenly
It
gates
existed with
in the
heaven and
sempiternal
earth,
realm,
and revered
every
with the
time a
universe.
heavenly gate was
As
opened,
long as the chaotic
one's
universe
cultivation
wasn't
would undergo an
destroyed,
earth-shattering
immortals
change.
could exist
When
forever.
all 9 heavenly
After
gates
stepping
were
into
opened,
the immortal
the
realm,
9 heavenly gates
one would
would
begin
merge
to
into
comprehend
one
the profound
and attract
meaning
the
of the
heavenly
chaotic
heart
laws,
of chaos,
and begin
then
to
one
touch
would
the
become the
so-called
strongest
chaotic
in
laws.
history.
Every
The topic
great
was a
technique
little
was
off
in
topic.
accordance with the
Speaking
principles
of
the
which,
chaotic
the
universe,
9 mountains Lu's
and its
cultivator
power was extremely
someone who had
terrifying.
opened the 3rd heavenly gate.
Similarly,
The difference
the galaxy
between Yi
had
Xian
transformed into
and
a
him
blade,
was like heaven
but
and
Li
earth.
Sangtian's
It would
blade
be a miracle
had
if
thrown
Yi
the universe
Xian could
into
survive
chaos.
in the hands of
Even
the
the
9
stars
mountains
in the
Lu's
chaotic
cultivator,
starry sky,
let
were
alone
being
defeat
annihilated
him.
into ashes.
Moreover,
It
it
was
was blade
fortunate
radiance
that the
appeared.
9 mountains
Billions
Lu's
of cold
cultivator
mountains
did
were
not
trembling
open
the 4th
nonstop.
heavenly gate.
It was as though
Otherwise,
this blade could
Yi
destroy
Xian
the
would
world.
not have to fight at all.
Tribulation
Turning
transcended
around and running
transformation.
away would be his
Yi
best
Xian's
choice.
eyes gradually
Every
turned
3rd
blood
level
red
of the 9
as he let
gates
out
of
a
heaven
ferocious
was
roar.
a qualitative
His
leap.
3,000
For
strands
example,
of hair
if an
violently fluttered
existence
in
who
the
had
wind.
opened the 4th
The
gate of heaven
tribulation
wanted
immortal
to kill an
transformation
existence
had
who
been
had
raised
opened
to
the
the
3rd
limit
gate
by
of
him,
heaven, and
it
his
wouldn't be
terrifying
easy,
aura and
but
combat
it definitely
strength were
wouldn't be
steadily
that
rising.
difficult.
Because
To be
Yi
able to
Xian
kill
felt the
someone
pressure
who had
and the
just
smell
entered
of
the
death.
sempiternal
Although
realm,
the smell
as
of
a
death
Tao
was very
comprehension
faint,
realm
it
expert,
was indeed
your
something that
aptitude
existed.
can be said to be
no
the
matter
best
who
in the
you
entire
entire North Star
no
territory.
matter what your identity
Even
is,
in the Central
even
Territory,
if you are the strongest
you can be
seed
called
of the
one of the
Central Domain,
strongest seeds.
you are only at the
I am a
path-seeking
person who
realm.
cherishes talent.
In front of an immortal,
Originally,
you are like
I
an
did not
ant.
want to kill a
I only
genius
need
like
one
you.
saber to kill
However,
I owe
Li
the nine
Tsangtian
was
was
laughing
laughing
maniacally,
so I can
the
only
heaven
kill
and
you
earth
today.
blade was humming
The 9
terrifyingly,
mountains loose
and the
cultivator
billions
spoke
of
calmly.
clouds in the sky
At this
were
moment,
completely
he had
shattered.
already ascended
Even
to
the boundless
extreme.
void was
No
gradually
matter what the
collapsing,
result was,
proving
his soul
just
would
how
scatter
scattered
between
between
heaven and
Tsangtian's
earth.
cultivation
Therefore,
was.
his heart was
At this
very
moment,
calm.
He
Even
was
though
so
Yi
calm
Xian
that he
had
only
used the
wanted to
tribulation
return the mortal
favor
transformation
and leave behind
and
his last
increased his
legend
combat
in the North
strength
Star
to
territory.
an extremely
Looking at the
terrifying
9
level,
mountains loose
he could feel that
cultivators
he
calm
definitely
and
wouldn't be
indifferent
able to
attitude.
withstand this blade
The corners
strike.
of Yi Xian's
This was
mouth
because
curled
his
up.
opponent's
He sneered and
cultivation and
said,
realm were
"You
too much
talk
higher
big,
than his,
so big that
However,
you can kill me."
there wasn't the
Unfortunately,
slightest bit of fear
someone
on Yi
tens of
Xian's
thousands
face.
of times
This was
stronger
because what he
than you
wanted
could
was
not kill me.
precisely this kind
Instead,
of life
he died
and
at
death
my hands.
tempering.
Do you
Only
really
in the
think you
instant
can
of
kill
life
me?
and death would he be able to sublimate his spirit and truly step into the Tao comprehending realm. Come,
Yi
Chapter
Xian stood
14,
against the
15.
wind, his black robe fluttering
How
wildly.
dare you?
He wanted
Arrogant,
to take this saber head on,
and
and welcome the
Forsec master
opportunity
stood up and
to
rebuked.
step into the Tao
They were
comprehending
extremely
realm.
dissatisfied
I'll
with
send
Yi
you on
Xian's
your way.
arrogant and ignorant
Flash.
words.
They looked at Yi Xian.
Heaven and earth
as if
roared
he was
as
an
the
idiot.
saber light shocked the
Is
world.
Yi Tian scared
This
out of his
saber
wits?
was an immortal saber.
How dare he boast
and
like
contained
this?
the truth of
10,000 times
Anyone
stronger
below
than
the
9
immortal
mountains
realm
would
cultivator.
become a ghost
Only
under
the
this
strongest
saber.
of all time.
No one could survive.
It seems like he's really
Chi.
crazy.
The world-shocking
The disciples
saber
of the
light
sixth
slashed
sect
down towards Yi
discussed
Xian.
animatedly.
The
No
terrifying
one
saber
believed Yi
light
Xian's
crushed
words.
mountains and rivers.
They looked at Yi Xian
and just
as if
its
he was
aura
crazy.
alone caused the earth to
Unfortunately,
collapse.
Yi Xian
The
didn't
saber
have
energy
any
that could
explanation
annihilate
for their
everything
doubts.
was spent between
Naturally,
heaven
he
and
wasn't
earth,
boasting,
causing the
Back
void
then,
in
so
all
many
directions
strongest
to
wanted
begin to
him dead.
explode.
Wasn't he still
Bury the
alive
heavens
now?
and destroy the
Moreover,
earth.
Yi Xian
Invulnerable
had
to
killed
all
the strongest
techniques
with his own
Yi
hands.
Xian didn't dodge
This
at
wasn't
all.
him boasting.
Instead,
Although he
his eyes
couldn't use
turned
the
scarlet
future
and
against
his
9
expression
mountains
was
loose
frantic.
cultivator.
His hands
With his
formed a
foundation,
mysterious seal.
it wouldn't be
and
so
a gray
easy
light
for him to
completely
kill him.
covered him.
After
This was the
experiencing
heaven-bearing
thousands of
technique,
tribulations and
and it
dangers,
was also an otherworldly
moving forward
technique.
in a sea of
It
blood
contained
with piles
Yi Xian's
of corpses
technique
behind
in
him.
Tao.
And
Yi
even
Xian's
condensed
hands
the
were
Tao
stained
fruits
with
of
the
his
blood
life.
of billions of
He
lives.
really wanted to see if
But
the
he still
technique
came
he
back
created
alive,
could withstand
walking
an immortal
between
strike.
life and death.
Boom,
Dancing
the
on the
immortal
edge of a
saber
blade
light finally
Yi
slashed
Xian
down
had
on Yi
experienced
Xian's
countless
body.
life and
His
death
entire body
situations.
was drowned in
At
the
this
saber
moment,
light.
although
As if his
9
entire
mountains
body
loose
was
cultivator
annihilated
gave him
by
a
this
lot of
saber.
pressure.
This was just a small
such a
scene
scene
in
in
Yi
Yi
Xian's
Xian's
life.
Huang. He
I've
was
seen
full of
many young
confidence
people,
in Yi Xian,
but you're the most
cry out in
arrogant
sorrow.
one.
However,
His face was extremely
everyone
pale.
has to pay the price
Clang.
for their arrogance.
Suddenly,
and
Gu
the price
Baichun's
you'll pay
expression
today
was
is
as
death.
cold as a
9
1,000-year-old
mountains loose
river.
cultivator
A
spoke
black
calmly,
saber appeared in his
but there was a
hand.
hint of anger
His originally
in his eyes.
calm eyes
Although
instantly
he had been
turned
silent
blood
for
red,
countless years,
and a wisp of terrifying
when he ran amok
demonic
in the
chi
northern
began
region,
to roll in his eyes.
Yi Xian hadn't been
An
born
immortal
yet.
is an immortal.
Now that he had
How can a
reappeared in the
Tao-querying
world,
realm
he
cultivator
once again
defeat him?
showed the
The
legend of
extreme
9
young
mountains
sect
loose
master
cultivator.
side.
Even
Even
if
this person
that
has
a
a
young
great
man in the
background,
future would
he
look
is
down
too
on him like
arrogant
this,
and still
Rumble.
fell in the hands of
9
Li
mountains
Tsangtian.
loose cultivator
This is his
stood
fate.
tall,
The
and
flying
raised his
Saint
5
sect
fingers.
master sighed again
The
and
3
again.
gates of heaven
Although
behind
Li
him buzzed.
Tsangtian has just
Even if
entered
his
the
world
immortal
was
realm,
destroyed in his
he is
battle
still
with the
a sect
ancient
master
devil,
level existence.
he was still a terrifying
If this person
figure
wants to
who
go
opened
against
the
him,
3rd gate of
it's
heaven.
no different from courting
Suppress.
death.
His words
Jiu
were
Chu
filled
sect
with
master
murderous
shook his
intent,
head helplessly.
and everything fell
At this
silent.
moment, 9
Several
mountains
sect
raised his
masters had
hand
sentenced
and
Yi Xian
pressed
to
down
death,
on Yi Xian,
because even
the
if they
shadow of
joined
an ancient
forces to
divine
withstand
mountain
Li
appeared,
Tsangtian's attack,
and the murderous
they wouldn't
intent
dare to
that could
say
say
that
that
they
they
could
could
survive.
things rumbled.
No matter
The
how
loose
strong Yi
cultivator
Xian
of the
was,
9 mountains
he
was
definitely
only his
wouldn't be
Taoist
able to
name.
survive.
And the technique he
Look,
specialized in
suddenly,
was called the
Sect
9
Master
Master
Corpse
divine
trembled
technique.
as he roared.
It was said that
He
when he
suddenly
used all
pointed
his
in Yi
strength,
Xian's direction,
he could use the 9
causing
great
everyone
divine
to be
mountain
stunned.
secret technique.
They immediately
The
looked
9
in Yi
great
Xian's
divine mountain
direction.
technique
Clang,
could
clang,
destroy
clang.
heaven and earth.
The saber radiance
and it had
clanged,
unimaginably
and a terrifying
terrifying power.
ear-piercing sound
Boom.
was heard
The heavens
continuously.
trembled and the
An
earth
extremely
sank.
terrifying scene appeared before everyone's eyes. Under
The
the
entire
slash of the
divine
immortal
lunar
mountain
saber
was
radiance.
collapsing.
A figure
Although
was
the eternal
roaring
divine
furiously.
mountain was not a
Although the
physical
gray
body,
light around him was
it was still
flickering.
a great technique
He still
condensed
managed
by
to
the
block the
unfettered 9
world-ending
mountains.
saber radiance.
At this moment, it pressed down
Even
on
though
Yi
the
Xian
immortal
with a
saber
terrifying
radiance
aura
was
that could
bursting with
suppress all
boundless
things.
power,
It still couldn't
Yi
kill
Xian's
him
face was
completely.
grim.
He
How is
stomped
this
his left
possible?
foot on the ground and
Li
shot into
Tsangtian
the
roared in
sky.
shock.
However, he
did
did
not
a total
face
of
the
80%
technique
of his
head-on.
cultivation for
Instead,
this
he
slash.
fled into the
Not
distance.
to mention those below
What kind
the
of
immortal
joke was
realm.
this?
Even
How
those
could
who
Yi
were at
Xian
the
be a
same
match
level
for an
as him
immortal
wouldn't
realm
dare
expert
to say that
who had
they would
opened
be
the
unharmed.
3rd gate of heaven?
But what did he
Although
see?
Yi Xian was
Although
ruthless
Yi Xian was
and
bitterly
sometimes
resisting,
extremely arrogant,
and the light around
he
his
was not
body
an idiot.
seemed like
With
it was
his
about to
current
shatter at
cultivation
any
level,
moment.
He
Fighting
was
the
still
loose
able to
cultivator
block
of the
Li
9
Tsangtian's
mountains
blade
was simply courting
Furthermore,
death.
The thing that
Even
caused
if Yi
Li
Xian
Tsangtian
used
to
all
feel
his
the
trump
most
cards,
fear was that
definitely not a match
currently
for
laughing
the
at him.
cultivator of
Yes,
the 9 mountains.
Li Sangtian didn't see wrongly.
The 4 sect
Yi
masters'
Xian was
expressions
indeed smiling
changed
at
drastically,
him, and it was a
if the
cruel
loose
and
cultivator
sinister
of the
smile.
9 mountains
This
attack
smile
landed,
sent chills down
they would
Li
definitely
Sangtian's
die
spine
here.
as his hair stood on end,
and an
the
indescribable
four-sect
fear
masters
grew
fled
in his
first,
heart.
and the disciples of the other 6 sects also scrambled to escape.
Chapter 1406.
Fortunately,
The
fear.
loose cultivator
It was
of
a
the
simple
9
word,
mountains,
but it was
locked
filled
on
with
Yi
the
Xian,
fear of the unknown,
and not these people.
Li Sangtian didn't want
Otherwise,
himself
with the
to
aura
be
locked
afraid,
on,
and he
these
didn't
people
want
would
himself
definitely
to tremble.
not be able to
But
escape
now,
from the
he
divine
couldn't
lunar
control
mountain.
himself,
Because
bang,
Yi Xian's
rumble.
eyes were staring
The
at
loose
him like a
cultivator
venomous
of the
snake.
9 mountains
His
attack
heart
was
too
trembling,
terrifying,
and his body was
the
trembling.
million-foot divine
He
lunar
didn't want
mountain
himself to
was
be in
directly
such a
shattered
state,
by his great
and
technique,
he wanted to remove the
turning
fear,
into ashes
but he
and
realized
dissipating.
that he couldn't do it.
The loose
What kind of eyes
cultivator
were
of the
those?
9 mountains frowned.
Fierce, crazy,
He did not
sinister, and
expect
bloody.
Yi Xian
If
to
it
be
was
able
just
to
those,
escape
Li
from his aura
Sangtian
wouldn't
wouldn't
feel fear.
This also
What
made
Li
him look at Yi
Sangtian saw
Xian with
with
surprise
Yi
in his
Xian's
eyes
contained a
You are indeed
domineering aura.
capable.
that he couldn't understand.
You could kill Li Tsangtian.
It was as though he was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, and Yi Xian was a terrifying butcher.
You will not be able to escape from my palm.
Waved the butcher's knife.
The loose cultivator of the Nine Mountains said calmly,
Go and die.
In the vast sky,
when the fear reached its peak,
did not escape too far.
Went crazy.
Instead,
this
formless fear was tormenting
which slightly
him,
startled the
and it
loose
forced him to shift his gaze away.
He
the
used
loose
all his
cultivation
of the Nine Mountains.
The immortal blade
thought
towards
that
Yi Xian would flee pathetically.
And
with
with
his
ability,
erupted with his
Yi
full
Xian
cultivation,
would not be able to escape.
The immortal blade
However,
light shone brightly.
He never expected
the dazzling
and
flawless
heaven and earth.
You are not
afraid
afraid
of death.
Once again,
the loose cultivator
of the Nine Mountains,
causing the gray
light
around
with
Yi
surprise.
to shatter inch by
afraid
inch.
of death.
Die, go and die.
Yi Xian laughed
roared
as if he had heard the
as he
looked
at
Yi
Xian
with
the
a
one
venomous
who will die
gaze.
today is you,
Yi
not
Xian
me.
actually made him feel
smile
fear,
disappeared,
and only by
a
killing
sinister
Yi Xian
smile appeared
would
at the
he be
corner
able
of
to
his
dispel
mouth.
this fear.
A strange
My
look
heart is the
flashed
heart of
across his
heaven,
eyes,
and my Tao
is the
arrogant.
great Tao.
The loose
What is the
cultivator
meaning
of the
Tao
Nine
Mountains
Mountains
expression
What I
turned
have
cold.
comprehended is
He had
merely
originally
my life
admired Yi
and my
Xian's
invincible
courage.
heart,
But now
my
it
heart
seemed
has
that the
never
other party
changed.
was
So how
simply
can I
arrogant
comprehend
and
Tao?
ignorant?
Suddenly, Yi Xian laughed sinisterly.
Under
Moreover,
the pressure given
he
by
did
Li
not take the loose
Tsangtian,
cultivator
his
of the
entire
Nine
body
Mountains
was
seriously
sublimated.
at all. In the midst of his predicament,
the loose cultivator
he
of the
finally
Nine
grasped
Mountains
the
finally
opportunity
lost interest
to step into
his
the Tao
sword finger cut
comprehension
through the
realm.
sky, and sword
Rumble,
rays of heaven
the
and earth
Tantian
appeared,
of the heaven-bearing
filling
divine
the entire
light
sky
pierced through the ground,
as his sword finger
and a gray
fell.
mist rose into
Hundreds
the sky.
of sword rays of
A
heaven
wisp
and
of
earth
indescribable
shot towards
chi
Yi
grew
Xian.
around Yi Xian.
Rumble.
These
And the
hundreds
immortal
of sword
blade
radiance
of heaven
that was
and earth
flashing
were
down
too
on
terrifying.
him was actually
Each sword ray was
disintegrating
tens
inch
of
by
thousands
inch,
of miles long.
lawless and out of
At
control.
this moment,
Without
they shot
heaven and
towards
earth,
Yi Xian,
I am the sole
shattering
sovereign.
the void in all
Yi
directions.
Xian roared at the sky.
Origin spirit
He was not
void.
roaring arrogantly.
Yi Xian roared,
but
and
he was
disappeared
narrating
in an
his own
instant.
dharma and Tao.
Hundreds of sword
he was
rays
also
of
witnessing
heaven
his
and
path
earth
of
swept past
cultivation.
the place where
the
he
light
had
around Yi
disappeared.
Xian's body
Shattering
was
the
as
millions
dazzling
of
as the
miles
sun.
of Mount Han.
That terrifying
You dare to
fluctuation
use such a
spread
petty
out
trick
in all
in front of me?
directions,
The loose
causing the minds
cultivator
of
of
the
all
Nine
living
Mountains
beings
to
laughed
tremble to the
contemptuously.
extreme. He was
Bang.
in the immortal realm.
In the next moment,
who had opened the
Yi
third
Xian's
heaven
body
gate,
shook,
and
and
the
the
immortal
immortal
blade
blade
spirit
that
void
was
might be an
flashing towards him
extremely
shattered.
mystical secret
The dense
technique
heaven
to
bearing
others.
divine
But to
radiance
the loose
enveloped him
cultivator of the
as
Nine
he walked
Mountains.
towards Li Tsangtian.
Yi Xian had nowhere
Dong,
to hide.
Dong,
Chi chi
Dong.
chi.
Heaven
The
and
hundreds
earth
of sword
trembled,
rays of
and the
heaven
void
and
rumbled.
earth turned around and shot towards
With
a
every
part of the
step that
void.
Yi Xian took,
Yi Xian's figure
the void
suddenly
beneath
appeared.
his feet exploded.
He turned into a
His
stream
aura
of
was
light
rising rapidly,
and kept dodging the
causing
sword
Li
rays.
Tsangtian's face
Sir,
to turn extremely
Gu Beichin
gloomy.
and Fatso
Mountain
Huang
River
turned
heaven
pale
and
when
earth.
they saw the scene.
Li Tsangtian
They were
roared in
deeply
anger.
afraid that
He
Yi
had
Xian
actually
would
brought
die
out
at the
his own
hands of the
immortal
loose
world.
cultivator
Heaven
of the
and
Nine
earth
Mountains.
within 100 million miles
Fortunately,
were distorted
although
at
Yi
this
Xian
moment,
was dodging in
and
a sorry
magnificent
state,
scenes of
he was not
mountains
injured
and
at
rivers
all.
were born.
This also
The
made the
immortal
loose
world was the
cultivator
source
of the Nine
great
Mountains
Tao.
frown.
When a
This kid
cultivator
has such a
stepped into the
powerful
secret
secret
technique,
The
they
loose
would open up their
cultivator
own
of the
world.
Nine Mountains
As their
murmured.
cultivation
Although
rose,
he could not see
the
what
world
kind of
they opened up
technique
would
Yi
also
Xian
be
was using.
constantly
His
perfected.
aura could not
As
lock
an immortal
onto Yi
realm
Xian at all.
cultivator,
Therefore,
Tsangtian's
he was
world
unable
had
to
already
kill
been
him
formed.
immediately.
This
If
was
this
also
is all
his
you
final
have,
trump card.
then you really
Either
are a
Yi
piece of
Xian
trash.
died or he died.
Yi Xian's
Rumble.
body was like a
The
ghost.
magnificent mountains
He sometimes
and rivers
shuttled through
suppressed
the void,
all living things,
and sometimes appeared
Li
millions
Tsangtian's
of
immortal
miles
world
away.
was too
If
terrifying.
one looked closely,
It was the
they would
condensation
discover
of
that
his
he was
life's Tao and
constantly
Tao.
circling the
It was
loose
also the
cultivator
product of
the
his
Nine
extreme
Mountains.
sublimation. Even if it was an immortal realm cultivator, facing Li Tsangtian's immortal world, they would definitely
14:16,
retreat and not
Yi
dare
Xian
to
was
perish
using the
together with him.
heaven-bearing secret
After
technique.
all,
If
also
he brought
known
out
as
his
the
own
heaven
world to
bearing
fight,
9 steps,
it would either be
it was
his
a
death
secret
or
technique
his.
that he had
Boom.
created himself.
In the next moment,
it was unpredictable.
Yi Xian was
and
trapped
filled
in
with the
Li
mysteries
Tsangtian's
of time and
immortal
space.
In Li
One had to
Tsangtian's
know that
immortal
although
world,
the heaven
he
burial
was the
technique
supreme existence.
that Yi Xian
Even though
created
Yi
wasn't
Xian
perfect,
had just broken
it
through to
contained
the
the
Tao
most powerful
comprehending realm,
profundities,
and his
It
body
was
had
fused
undergone
into
a terrifying
furnace
growth
and turned into
He still
something
felt
that he
extremely
created.
heavy pressure.
This was also the
It was
method
difficult
in
to
Tao
move
that
an
he
inch.
created, as though
The
he was stuck in a
heaven-bearing 9
quagmire.
steps was filled
Even
with the
breathing was
mysteries of
difficult.
time and space.
This was Yi
This
Xian's
was also
most
the reason
realistic
why
feeling
Nine
at this
Mountains
moment.
unfettered
Could
Immortal
not kill
world
Yi
suppresses
Xian all living things.
Brat, you
Even
finally
if you are a
angered me.
heaven-defying
9
genius,
mountains
and
unfettered
my
face
immortal
was
world,
cold.
you
He
will
had
still
already
turn
attacked
into
twice in
ashes.
a row.
Not only had he
stood
failed to
proudly
kill
in the
Yi
void,
Xian,
he looked
but he
down
had
at
also
Yi
allowed
Xian
Yi
as his
Xian
voice
to continuously
continuously
mock
mock
entire
him.
immortal
Even
world.
if he was made of
In the
mud,
world that he had
he would
opened
still
up,
be angry at this moment.
was the supreme
3
existence.
mountains seal the heavens.
No one could go against
Rumble.
his will.
The 3
With the
heavenly
might
gates
of his
rumbled
immortal
and shook.
world, he
9
could even
mountains
kill someone
unfettered
performed a mysterious technique.
Immortal
The 3
world,
heavenly gates
Yi
burst
Xian
forth with
squinted his
extremely
eyes.
terrifying
The
power.
cultivation in his
Directly
body was
sealing
stagnant.
the world within a
He
million
felt as though
miles.
he was carrying the
Sealing
weight
the
of an
world,
eternal
trapping
sky,
the world,
and even
dominating
taking
an
a
area.
step forward was
Since he could
extremely
not
difficult.
lock onto Yi Xian's
However,
aura,
He would trap him within this million miles. Instead, his lips curled into a cruel did not believe that he could not kill Yi fought with him. Even if he couldn't win against divine mountains appeared, with his immortal realm accompanied by hundreds of sword lights, he could still escape. At this moment, after all, the world within a million miles fighting strength was heaven-defying. 9 mountains, it wasn't realistic for him to stop the immortal realm cultivator. The terrifying immortal killing intent poured down on brought out his immortal world. The world was in chaos and wanted to kill him in a frenzy. Was like a lonely boat. This meant that only one of them could survive today. By the wind and immortal rain. World suppress he could be drowned by all kinds of terrifying waves of power at any time. Rumble. The 3 ancient divine mountains formed a triangle, and the entire immortal world shone brightly. The aura that terrifying power of the immortal world crushed towards Yi. At this moment, the boundless world was collapsing. At this critical moment, escape. The cruel smile on Yi Xian's face grew wider, the endless pressure, and a sinister light flashed across his body. Attack. He dodged the attack of the 3 mountains. It was as if an ancient vicious beast was roaring. As if taboo words were being spoken. That was not the end of it. Yi Xian's aura of worldly sword beams and the taboo attack character technique each of these terrifying sword beams combined with the 5,000 kilometer transformations everywhere they passed. Mountains and rivers were destroyed. To resist the suppression of the world. They forced Yi Xian into a desperate situation. A forbidden technique passed down to Yi Xian by the eternal shadow. Yi Xian didn't panic in the face of danger. It was known as the third greatest defensive technique of all time. He instantly activated the unfathomable forbidden power in conjunction with the tribulation transcender transformation. When Yi Xian used his palms transformed even the immortal into the power of limitless primordial chaos. How is this possible? As a gray halo of light shot out, face changed, instantly turning the hundreds of sword lights so terrifying into nothingness. Even if he brought out his immortal world, he still couldn't suppress Yi Xian. Yi Xian forcibly neutralized the fatal blow. Under Li Sangtian's dumbfounded state, after all, unfettered 9 mountains cultivation was much higher than lit up behind him. Even though he had forcibly neutralized the blow revolved around him, it still caused him great damage. 12 Yuan. This was the supreme world created by Yi Xian. 9 mountains, the 12 stars represented suddenly appeared behind him, and it could be said terrifying right hand erupted with immortal light as he reached for Yi Xian's immortal world. His 5 fingers were like the immortal world, capable of destroying everything. If this blow landed, Yi Xian's heart would definitely be penetrated. The heavens and earth were in chaos as the 12 stars rumbled. Time buries the aura that could shake the ages. At this critical moment, to the extreme, Yi Xian's eyes narrowed. The 12 stars lined up in an orderly manner fused with the heaven-bearing Li Sangtian. The space-time around him accelerated, the power of the world, and it directly affected his body. Immortal world, allowing him to dodge the fatal blow of 9 mountains, the chaotic 12 cultivator world. Bang! How could a small immortal thousands of kilometers the entire chaotic universe? Although 9 mountains, of course, unfettered cultivators was in the immortal realm after all. It still created a world destroying power. It had already started in the sky were exploding and was able to withstand the rivers were turning into dust. 12 Yuanhui thousands of kilometers of mountains and rivers began to collapse. Face turned pale. The might of the immortal realm was terrifying. This was the true immortal realm. The primal chaos. Li Sangtian destroying everything in all directions. 9 mountains. The attack cultivator formula was actually used on the 12 Xian's figure rapidly retreated. The ancient aura of attack instantly opening a distance everywhere of millions of kilometers. The immortal world was on the verge of crumbling. 9 mountains no matter how Li Sangtian tried to suppress it, unfettered cultivator slowly turned down the signs of the world collapsing. His eyes flashing violently. The most terrifying thing happened. 9 mountains unfettered cultivator only said one word and didn't continue. He only looked at Yi Xian causing him a look of understanding, and his original world was instantly destroyed. You're actually from the temporal temple? Blood dyed the sky. Unfortunately, and Li Sangtian's body was badly damaged. Didn't say this. His world was destroyed. Because if he did, and he was on the verge of death, would probably he was like a kite with a broken string as he fell towards the mountain. The other 6 sects would be terrified. There was a loud sound as Li Sangtian was able to dodge that fatal blow just now. Large amounts of blood dyed the mountain peak red. And blood was flowing out from his mouth. Cultivator believed that he definitely didn't see wrong. Rumble. Although he had never encountered anyone from the temporal temple, descended from the heavens in existence and appeared before the third gate of heaven. The 12 stars around him rumbled and rotated, those who were stronger causing than him, others to feel reverence in their hearts. Technique could have such a profound effect on him. The 6 desires were emotionless. If 9 mountains and the heaven and earth cultivator was at his peak, Yi Xian stepped on Li Sangtian's head, and his lips because he didn't want to offend the temporal temple. In the next moment, party was the successor of Lord and grief and indignation. It wouldn't do him any good, foot was but he was about to die. His face, and a dead man no longer had the sound of bones shattering even if Yi Xian was from the temporal temple. Were faintly caving in as large amounts of blood flowed out from his face. Silence, silence, a deathly silence. No
when
wonder
this scene
you could
appeared
kill
before the eyes of the disciples of the
Unfortunately,
sixth sex.
you met me in the end.
All of them were dumbfounded
9 mountains
and rooted
unfettered
to the
cultivator
ground like
said
clay
coldly.
puppets.
Yi
Only
Xian's
the
eyes
sound of
deepened.
gasps could be
He
heard.
naturally knew that
Everyone
9
looked at
mountains
Yi
unfettered
Xian with eyes
cultivator,
filled with
had seen
indescribable
through his
fear
use
and
of the
shock.
power of time
Not
and
to
space.
mention the disciples
But it
of the
didn't
sixth
matter.
sex. Because
Even the
9
four
mountains
sect unfettered
unfettered cultivator could only
They
die
couldn't
here
help
today,
but take a few steps
and it was
back.
impossible for
They
him
couldn't
to reveal
believe
his
what they were
secret.
seeing.
Yi
They
Xian
couldn't
wiped
believe
the
it at
blood
all.
from the corner
What
of his
kind of
mouth.
joke was this?
Although he had dodged the fatal blow just now,
To think that a
he was still
dignified
injured
Immortal
after
realm
dispersing
expert,
the sword
a
light.
sect master level
However,
figure,
Yi Xian
would
wasn't
actually be
afraid at
trampled
all.
beneath the feet
Instead,
of a
his
Dao
eyes
querying
deepened.
realm cultivator.
Brat. So what
This
if your
had completely
completely
toppled
toppled
their
their
understanding
in front
of the world,
absolute power
and made
You're
them
just an
feel
ant.
that this was
You
simply
can
a
only die
fantasy
here
story.
today. If they
9
hadn't seen
mountains
it with their own
unfettered
eyes,
cultivator
they would
secretly
never have
transmitted his
believed
voice.
that such a
His
ridiculous
killing
thing
intent
could happen.
rising to the peak.
Even if Li
Let's
Tsangtian
see
had
how
just
capable
entered the
you
immortal
are.
realm,
Yi
he
Xian
was
whispered
still a realm
coldly.
higher than Yi
The light
Xian.
of Barry the heavens
Moreover,
covered him.
the gap
and a
between the
scarlet
immortal
color
realm
flashed
and the
across his
Dao
eyes.
querying realm was
He
like
sneered
heaven
inwardly.
and earth. It was almost
9
impossible to
mountains
break
unfettered
through.
cultivator
But even
took a
if they
step
didn't want to
forward,
believe it,
and the void
they had
beneath
to
his
because
feet
the
trembled.
truth was right in
He
front of
instantly
them.
charged
Fear,
towards Yi
shock,
Xian.
speechlessness,
But Yi
and
Xian
even
wasn't
reverence.
stupid enough to
These
fight
were the
9
emotions of the
mountains
four
unfettered
sect
cultivator.
masters. He
And the
immediately
disciples
began
of
to
the
flee.
sixth section.
This world has been
Everyone
sealed
looked
by
at
me.
Yi Xian
You
with
can't
eyes
escape.
filled with extreme
9
fear.
mountains
If Li
unfettered
Tsangtian
cultivator
was a
coldly
god in their
shouted.
eyes,
Wander
an
9
unreachable
mountains
god that
coldly
needed to be
shouted as he
revered.
unleashed one
Then Yi
killing
Xian was a
technique after
god
another,
slayer.
causing
When he
the
waved his
entire
butcher's
area
knife,
to become
it
extremely
could be said
chaotic,
that he was slaying
causing
a god
Yi
to
Xian
prove
to
his
flee
Dao.
in an extremely
Little brat
sorry
Yi
state.
Xian,
Kill me if
Bang.
you can. A
Li
palm that could
Tsangtian
split
roared in
mountains
grief
and
and
anger
rivers.
under Yi
Chi,
Xian's feet.
a sword that could split
venomous
heaven
roar
and
was
earth.
extremely
Rumble.
mournful.
Heaven
He had
and
been
earth
defeated,
great seals
thoroughly
condensed
defeated.
one after another.
Moreover, transforming
been
into
defeated
hundreds
in the
of
hands
mountain
of a Dao
shadows that
querying
smashed
realm
towards Yi
cultivator.
Xian. Many
Causing
years
the
later,
entire world
he
to
would
be
be nailed to
destroyed.
the pillar of shame.
However,
and
Yi
become
Xian
the
was still
laughing
able
stock
to
of the
dodge
North
them in a
Star
sorry
region.
region.
His
The power
power
of
had been
time and
destroyed,
space really is
and his
powerful.
Dao had been severed.
I can't lock onto
Even
this
if he could
brat's aura
survive,
at all.
he would never
If
be
I don't
able
kill
to
him
take another
quickly,
step forward.
I'm afraid my soul
This
will
blow
scatter
had caused
after
Li
he
Tsangtian
ascends.
to lose the
As
courage
9
to
mountains
continue living.
unfettered cultivator
Kill you.
chased after Yi
No,
Xian.
no. A
No
sense
matter
of
what,
urgency rose
you are
in his
still
heart.
an immortal sect
He only
master.
had 2 hours
Wouldn't
after
it be
his
a pity if
ascension.
I killed you
After
so
2
easily?
hours, he would
Yi
die.
Xian
continued to stomp on Li Tsangtian's head as he spoke sinisterly. As Yi Xian spoke, he flipped his hand, and a gourd appeared. Chapter
As he opened the
14:17.
gourd,
A terrifying suction
9
force
mountains
appeared,
loose cultivator
and
could
directly
feel his
sucked Li
condition
Tsangtian into the
deteriorating.
gourd. This was
After
an
Yi
obvious
Xian
sign
finished doing
that he
all
was
of
about
this,
to collapse.
he smiled as he
Chi,
looked at the 4
Chi,
great sect
Chi.
masters.
Yi
Xian
Xian
was
was
like
like
a
a
fish in
domineering
water,
aura around him, also
constantly
dissipated.
wandering and dodging.
But the 4
He
great
didn't
sect
fight 9
masters'
mountains
faces
loose
were deathly
cultivator at
pale.
all.
As they
9 mountains
unconsciously
loose
took a step
cultivator
back.
chased Yi Xian
Fellow
from the sky
Taoist
to the ground,
cultivation is
then from the
unfathomable,
ground to the sky.
and we are extremely
The 2 of
impressed.
them caused
Fellow
unimaginable
Taoists
destruction
should be able
wherever
to
they
take
went.
40%
Kill
of the spirit
him.
vein.
We are
Senior 9
sincerely
Mountain is
convinced.
immortal.
Flying
Today,
Saint
this
Sect
great
Master
demon
forced
will
to
die
smile,
without a doubt.
and the other
How
3
could
sect
such an ant
masters
dare to fight
hurriedly
against
nodded
Senior
in
9th
agreement.
Mountain? The 4
While
great
9
sect
mountains
masters
loose
could tell that Yi
chased Yi
Xian was
Xian.
completely
The
fearless.
disciples of the
It
sixth
was
sect
one thing to
shouted
kill the
loudly.
lunar sect
All
master,
kinds of flattery
but
were
now
heard,
even Li
and
Tsangtian
this
was
made
defeated
9
by him.
mountains loose
Although Li
cultivator more and more
Tsangtian wasn't
anxious.
dead yet.
At this
The 4
time,
great sect
only the
masters
4
could
sect
imagine his
masters
tragic
remained
end.
silent.
Ferocious
They originally
man,
had
ferocious
smiles
man.
on their faces,
But now their smiles
this
had
was the
disappeared.
definition that the 4
Instead,
sect masters
there was a
gave
touch
to
of
Yi
worry in
Xian.
their eyes.
Sect
The
Master
4
Yi,
sect
if
masters
there
were
is
not
nothing else,
disciples of
we
the
will
sixth
take our
section.
leave.
They were all in the
sect
Dao
master
integration
forced to
realm.
smile.
Naturally,
She felt extremely
their vision was
uncomfortable
much
every
higher
time
than the
she
disciples
stayed
of
with
the
Yi Xian,
sixth section,
as though
9
Yi
mountains
Xian
loose
could swallow
cultivator
them up any
was an
time.
existence
Fellow
who had opened
Taoists,
the 3rd gate of
isn't
heaven.
it a little
While
inappropriate
Yi
for you to
Xian was
leave
only
just
in
like
the
that?
Dao comprehending
Yi
realm.
Xian strolled
Even
towards
if
the 4
Yi
sect Yixian was a heaven-defying monster.
This caused their expressions
and his combat
to change
strength could
as
not
they
be measured
instantly
by common
unleashed their
sense.
cultivation.
It would not
and
be
looked at
difficult for
Yixian
9
solemnly.
mountains lose cultivator to
Master
kill
Yi,
him.
The
But
four
now,
of us did
an
not
hour had
offend you.
passed. Previously,
Yixian was
when you
still
wanted
alive.
to take 30%
Although he
of
seemed
the
to be
spirit
running in a
vein,
sorry
we
state.
did not object.
9 mountains
Now
lose
we are even
cultivator
willing
still
to
had
give
not
40%
killed
of the
him.
spirit
Not good.
vein to the lunar
If this
sect.
goes on,
I'm
fellow
afraid
Taoist,
Senior 9
why do
Mountain
you have
will.
to make things difficult
Sect
for
Master
us?
Jiu Chu
Solar
suddenly
Sect
thought of an
Master said
extremely
solemnly.
terrifying result.
Obviously,
Could it
the
be
4
that
sect
Yixian
masters
thought
that
that
Yixian wanted to kill
exhaust
them
himself to
and
death?
were extremely nervous.
Sect Master
afraid
Corpse Kui
that
was
Yixian would
instantly
attack
shocked.
them.
If
Their
Yixian
conversation
did not have the
immediately
battle
made the
record
Solar
of defeating
Sect
Master
Sangtian
and flying
the 4
Saint
sect masters would only be wary of Yixian. They instantly
But after
thought of
seeing
this
Li
terrible
Sangtian's
thing.
tragic end,
The 4 sect
the
masters
four of them
looked
knew
up
that
at the
even
two
if they
frantically
joined forces,
chasing people at
they
the
might
same
not be a
time.
match for Yixian.
Sure enough,
Fellow
Yixian had
Taoists,
been
you've
running
misunderstood
and had not attacked
Actually,
9 mountains
I
loose
only
cultivator.
want to discuss some things
On
with
the other
4
hand,
of you. Although
I have
Nine
no
Mountains
enmity with the
cultivator
cultivator
was madly
so how could I
chasing Yi
possibly
Xian?
attack you?
He was still unable
Yi Xian
to deal
lightly
a fatal
smiled.
blow to Yi
As Yi
Xian.
Xian's words
Bang!
landed, puff,
The four of them
with
were
a muffled
stunned and their
sound,
auras were
Yi
slightly
Xian
stifled.
spat out a mouthful
Obviously,
of blood.
he
They
had
did
not
not again
understand
dodged
what
what
Yi
Yi
Xian
Xian
wanted
from
to
Yi
do.
Xian.
But the shockwaves from his opponent's great technique had still injured him. The North Region Alliance cannot be without a leader. Since the four of you are here
body
today,
was like a ghost
I think
as he
we
fled
can
once
discuss
more.
who the new leader
Loose
of the North
cultivator
Region
9
Alliance
Mountains
arrived in an instant.
Yi Xian smiled,
But he still let
looking
Yi
at
Xian
Yi
escape.
Xian's smiling
This
face.
caused his face to
The four
darken,
sect masters
and an
were
extremely
enlightened,
frightening
and
and vicious
instantly
aura
understood what
constantly
Yi
grew in
Xian
his
meant.
heart. He wanted to be the leader of the alliance. The four
Brat,
sect
you want to
masters looked
exhaust
at
my
each other
cultivation?
and saw the
Loose
helplessness
cultivator
in each
9
other's
Mountains
eyes.
had lived for
Li
countless
Xingtian
years
had already
and was
fallen
also
into
a
Yi
scheming
Xian's
person.
hands.
He
And most
quickly
likely
calmed
would
himself
not be able
down
to survive.
and immediately
The
discovered
North Region
Yi Xian's
Alliance
scheme.
was indeed
Clearly,
going to become a
Yi
pile
Xian
of
had
loose
been running
sand.
all this time
At this moment,
because he wanted
Yi
to
Xian
exhaust
wanted
his
to be the leader
cultivation.
of the alliance.
It was as if Yi
Although they
Xian
were
knew that he was
extremely
already a
unwilling,
lamp that
they
had
did
run
not
out of
dare
oil
to refute
and could not
under
hold
the
on for
eaves.
much longer.
They had no choice
Loose
but to
cultivator
lower their
9
heads.
Mountains had
The
no
four
time to
sect
guess how Yi
masters knew
Xian
that
knew
if they
the state of
refuted,
his body,
they would
because
definitely
he really
attract
did not
Yi
have
Xian's
much time
left.
left.
If he
Of
still
course,
could not
the
kill Yi
position of the
Xian,
alliance
then
leader
he would die
belongs
in
to
front
Sect
of him.
Master Yi.
Let's end this.
We of the sixth
Loose
sects have no
cultivator 9
objections.
Mountains shouted
Corpse
coldly.
Kuei Sect
An
Master
indifferent
forced
light
a
flashed
smile.
through his eyes.
That's right.
He did not
Only
want to
Sect
waste any
Master
more
Yi is
time.
qualified
In
for
the
the
last
position
moment
of
of
the
his
alliance
life,
leader.
he wanted to use
Solar
his
Sect
ultimate
Master
technique
faked a smile
and completely
under
destroy
the
Yi
leadership
Xian.
of alliance
On the
leader
other
Yi.
side,
Our
Yi
North
Xian's
Region
fleeing
Alliance
figure
will
suddenly
definitely
stopped.
be able to reach
He
a higher
slowly
level.
turned his head to look at Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains.
A strange light flashed through his eyes as he opened and closed them. He actually stopped running, as if he was waiting for something to happen. 9 Mountains whirled. Rumble. The 3 heavenly gates collapsed with a loud bang. 9 Mountains Loose Cultivator burst out with an extremely bright light, and his aura rose to a terrifying level. He formed the infinite divine art with both hands, and struck out a total of 9 runes on the dome. Bang! 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 Something extremely terrifying happened. Phantoms of divine mountains condensed on top of the dome. A total of 9 divine mountains appeared. The aura of destruction that could suppress heaven and earth burst out in all directions. 9 Mountains World. Senior 9 Mountains World's most powerful technique? Legend has it that when Senior 9 Mountains fought the ancient devil to the death, it was this 9 Mountains World that seriously injured the ancient devil. He's dead. Yi Tian is dead for sure. The 4 sect masters cried out in alarm. Their faces were filled with excitement because when Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains used this most powerful technique, Yi Xian would definitely end up without a corpse. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Ancient times, the 9 mountains were in the sky. Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains' face was solemn. He walked with his hands supporting the sky. The phantoms of the 9 sacred mountains shook terrifyingly in the dome. The aura that fell down caused the void to explode. It made people feel a sense of fear at a glance. Kid, to be able to die under my 9 Mountains world, you can die in peace. At this moment Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains was too perfect. His body bloomed with an invincible spirit. Under the illumination of the 9 sacred mountains, it was as if the world could be destroyed by him. At this moment, Yi Xian didn't try to escape. Instead, he looked directly at Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains. When he opened and closed his eyes, they were abnormally deep. The corners of his mouth curved into an incomprehensible mocking smile. You can't kill me. Instead, you're going to die here, Yi Xian said indifferently. Arrogant. Senior 9 Mountains, kill him. The 4 sect masters shouted excitedly. The disciples of the 6 sects continued to curse. Kid, arrogance comes with a price. Today, I'll send you on your way. Rumble. Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains didn't waste any more words. He looked at Yi Xian with eyes full of murderous intent. His heaven-supporting hands began to sink. The phantoms of the 9 sacred mountains became more and more solid. They were going to fall on Yi Xian at any time. Destroy. The 9 Mountains Loose Cultivator roared as the brilliance around his body blazed to the extreme. His hands that held the sky abruptly swung towards Yi Xian. The 9 divine mountains had already finished condensing, and they crashed down towards Yi Xian from the dome. Sir, be careful. Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen shouted anxiously, but the two saw that Yi Xian didn't even have any intention of dodging. Instead, He looked at loose cultivator 9 mountains with a mocking smile. Rumble. Everyone seemed to see that Yi Xian was about to be annihilated by the 9 great divine mountains. However, what happened in the next moment caused everyone to be speechless. Bang bang bang. The 9 divine mountains had already descended from the sky. However, terrifying cracks appeared on the 9 divine mountains. Following the first explosion, the 9 divine mountains were destroyed one by one. They were annihilated in an instant. Wah! A mournful cry rang out. 9 mountains loose cultivator's body began to crack. His jet black hair began to wither, and he coughed out a mouthful of blood. The light around him instantly dimmed. What's going on? Why is this happening? What's going on? The next moment, an extremely panicked feeling grew in the 6 sections. All kinds of shocked and incomprehensible comments were made. Chapter 14:18. It can't be, how can it be like this? The 4 sect lords trembled and roared, because the loose cultivator of 9 mountains in the sky no longer had any heroic spirit. He had turned into an old man with a deathly aura circling around him. It was as if he could be buried in the earth at any moment. Why is it like this? The loose cultivator of 9 mountains was weak and powerless. He trembled as he raised his wrinkled old hands. His turbid eyes were filled with despair and disbelief. Why is it like this? Thump, thump, thump. Yi Xian strolled through the sky with a mocking smile on his lips. When he arrived in front of the loose cultivator of 9 mountains, a hint of contempt rose from the corners of his mouth. You are pitifully stupid, and also pitifully arrogant. Do you think you are still the same person? Your world has been destroyed, and your origin of the great path has been shattered. Even if you have reached the pinnacle and recovered your former combat ability, you only have one chance to attack. What a pity, what a pity. You were too arrogant and underestimated me. You liked to preach to me, as if you were the most important person in the world. You also wasted a lot of power in the early stages. If you had used the world of 9 mountains when you first appeared, perhaps you would have had a chance to kill me. Unfortunately, you wasted too much power. When you used the world of 9 mountains in the end, you had reached your limit and could not use this technique. This directly returned you to your original form. Now, you don't even have the chance to kill me. Yi Xian sneered and directly pointed out the loose cultivator of 9 mountains' greatest weakness. It turned out that when Yi Xian knew of the loose cultivator of 9 mountains' existence, he had already formulated a plan to deal with him. From the beginning, Yi Xian did not fight him head-on, because Yi Xian knew that he was no match for him. The loose cultivator of 9 mountains was just a dying man, a final radiance of the setting sun. In the early stages, Yi Xian allowed the loose cultivator of 9 mountains to be rampant. By the time the loose cultivator of 9 mountains realized it, it was already too late. He could not use the most powerful technique he had condensed. Instead, he was beaten back to his original form. At this moment, there was no need for Yi Xian to do anything himself. It wouldn't take long for 9 mountains' loose cultivator's soul to be scattered between heaven and earth. Arrogance isn't scary. Arrogance also requires strength. But in my opinion, your arrogance is stupidity. This stupidity is your fatal weakness, and also the road to your death. But to put it bluntly, even if you didn't fight with the ancient devil back then, and your world wasn't destroyed, based on your temperament, you'll only be able to stay at the 3rd gate of heaven for the rest of your life. In my eyes, you're just a piece of trash, Yi Xian said indifferently. Wow! Hearing Yi Xian's mocking words and seeing Yi Xian's disdainful gaze, loose cultivator 9 mountains' face flushed red with shame and anger. His chest tightened, and he spat out a mouthful of blood as he staggered backwards. Humiliation, undisguised humiliation. Loose cultivator 9 mountains wanted to explode and kill Yi Xian, but he was already on the verge of death. Wanting to kill Yi Xian at this moment was just wishful thinking. Look at how defeated you are. You're just as funny as a stray dog. Yi Xian curled his lips in ridicule as he leisurely walked towards the 9 mountains wanderer. However, a cruel smile appeared on his face. Silence. Silence. A deathly silence. An extremely oppressive atmosphere grew. Everyone looked at Yi Xian with fear in their eyes, because they knew what was going to happen next. Buzz! Yi Xian's body flashed, and he suddenly appeared in front of Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains. Under everyone's fearful gazes, he grabbed Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains' neck and lifted him into the air. Crack! 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 A series of cracking sounds came from the neck. Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains' face turned purple as he struggled in Yi Xian's grip. There were suppressed and angry growls coming from his mouth. Tisk tsk tsk. Yi Xian shook his head contemptuously and said, "Look at how much of a dog you are. You were barking so happily just now, but now you're like a dead dog waiting for death to come. Junior, if you want to kill me, then kill me. If I beg for mercy, then I'm not Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains." Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains roared hatefully. He was already on the verge of death. Even if Yi Xian didn't kill him, it wouldn't be long before his soul was scattered and he died. Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains was already indifferent to life and death. He had long been prepared to face death. But even if he died, he would not accept Yi Xian's humiliation. "I admire people with courage. Seeing your unyielding and fearless eyes, it seems to be a very challenging thing for me. Death is not scary. What's scary is living a life worse than death. Am I right?" Yi Xian smiled evilly, revealing his white teeth like the fangs of a demon. Everyone was in a daze for a moment, and they couldn't help but shudder. What do you want to do?" Looking at Yi Xian's evil smile, Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains' entire body shivered. A very bad feeling grew, as if something bad was about to happen. Suddenly, an extremely miserable shriek rang out from 9 Mountains' Loose Cultivator's mouth, as an extremely terrifying scene appeared. Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains' chest was pierced, and a bloody hole appeared. Yi Xian's hand had already pierced through his heart. Yi Xian had actually dug out his heart while he was still alive. Bang! Under the horrified gazes of Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains and the people of the sixth sex, Yi Xian smiled evilly and crushed Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains' heart in his hand. Then, he waved his hand, and a rain of blood fell from the sky. Killing someone and destroying the heart caused fear to breed. Death was not scary. What was scary was experiencing death bit by bit. This kind of mental torture was the most terrifying. Of course, Yi Xian was not a psychopath. He did not want to kill Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains out of boredom. He just wanted to establish his power and give everyone a warning. You will die a horrible death." Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains roared miserably. His withered eyes were extremely mournful. "Hate, be angry, curse, and die in endless regret and pain. This is the price you have to pay for going against me," Yi Xian said viciously. He casually tore off one of Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains' arms. Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains' miserable screams, and a bloody severed arm fell at Yi Xian's feet. The pain from the flesh was not enough to make Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains afraid. It was just that when he saw his own body being casually ripped off by Yi Xian, even though his mind was extremely strong, it was extremely difficult for him to accept such a scene. Rip! As the people of the sixth sex broke out in a cold sweat, and their teeth chattered, Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains howled in pain again. His other arm had been torn off by Yi Xian. "You will die a horrible death. Even if I die, I will curse you for all eternity. Kill me." Loose Cultivator 9 Mountains screamed in pain, and a large amount of blood stained the ground. There was not a single spot on his body that was unscathed. He had been torn to pieces by Yi Xian while he was still alive. His entire person died in extreme fear and pain. Chapter 1419. What a pity, what a pity. No matter what, he was still in existence that opened the third heavenly gate. It's really a pity that he died like this. Yi Xian looked at the broken body at his feet, and a touch of pain appeared on his face. There was even a trace of disappointment in his eyes. No matter what, 9 Mountains Loose Cultivator was an existence that opened the third heavenly gate. If he could devour his cultivation, it would be immeasurable for Yi Xian. Unfortunately, it wasn't that Yi Xian didn't want to devour 9 Mountains Loose Cultivator, but that 9 Mountains Loose Cultivator's cultivation had already been exhausted. Even if Yi Xian used the Tribulation Transcender technique and the heaven-devouring demonic art, he couldn't devour any cultivation at all. After all, Nine Mountains' loose cultivator's world origin had been destroyed, and he had been a cripple a long time ago. This time, he had only sublimated to the extreme and squeezed out the last of his potential. After exhausting his potential, he was no different from a cripple. Bang! The more Yi Xian thought about it, the more regretful he felt. He looked at the broken body at his feet with slight disgust and stomped his right foot on the ground, directly crushing Nine Mountains' loose cultivator's body into a bloody mist. As Yi Xian waved his sleeve, the bloody mist that filled the sky dissipated with the wind. Tortured to death, not even his bones were left. This was the tragic end of Nine Mountains' loose cultivator. The world was silent, and there was no sound. Whether it was the people of the 6 sects, the 4 sect masters, or even the 4 supreme elders of the Supreme Een Heavenly Sect, everyone was trembling at this moment. They looked at Yi Xian's back with fear. Yi Xian had easily killed someone. At this moment, everyone had endless fear of him. They were deeply afraid that the next person to die would be them, and they would end up like Nine Mountains' loose cultivator. What? Fellow Taoists, are you willing to unite the 6 sects? Gently, Yi Xian turned around to look at the 4 great sect masters. His gaze swept across the faces of everyone present, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. His white teeth were emitting an ominous glint, as if he was choosing someone to devour. Sect Master, please forgive us. We will kowtow to you. From now on, we won't dare to betray you. Plop. The 4 supreme elders were so scared that they immediately knelt down. Large amounts of cold sweat flowed down their cheeks. They kowtowed as if they were pounding garlic. They were already extremely terrified. Sovereign is valiant. Everyone from the Lunar Sky sect hurriedly knelt down. None of them dared to raise their foreheads to the ground. Their kneeling bodies were trembling, and they couldn't control their trembling. They were deeply afraid of Yi Xian from the bottom of their hearts. Terrifying, too terrifying. It was so terrifying that no one dared to have the slightest bit of different thoughts. At this moment, Yi Xian had undoubtedly become the most ferocious person in history. This invisible fear suppressed everyone, and no one dared to show the slightest disrespect at this moment. Fellow Taoists, are you willing to unite the 6 sects and let this Yi be the master of these 6 sects? Yi Xian grinned. His ghastly white teeth were extremely obvious, causing the 4 great sect masters to fiercely shiver. Plop. In the next moment, the Flying Saint sect master was the most spineless one. He directly knelt down and kept kowtowing to Yi Xian. Sect Master Yi, the entire Flying Saint sect is willing to submit to you. From now on, the entire sect is willing to be at your beck and call. We won't dare to betray you in the slightest. Not bad, not bad. I like your humble attitude very much. Yi Xian nodded in satisfaction and praised the Flying Saint sect master. However, he turned his head slightly to look at the other 3 sect masters, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. It seems that the 3 of you don't agree with the unification of the 6 sects? Yi Xian's voice began to become sinister. When the 3 sect masters saw that cruel and ferocious smile, their hearts trembled fiercely. Plop! The 3 sect masters instantly knelt down and kept kowtowing to Yi Xian. Sect Master Yi, you are a great person. We are willing to submit to you. From now on, we won't dare to betray you. Jiu Chu's sect master trembled and didn't dare to lift his head. Jiu Chu's sect master couldn't be blamed for this. She was the one who invited Nine Mountains' loose cultivator. If Yi Xian wanted to settle the score with her, she would die without a doubt. Sect Master Yi, from now on, my Solar Sky sect will only listen to your orders. We won't dare to disobey you in the slightest. The Solar Sky sect master had a fiery temper and always acted like a lion to the outside world. However, in front of Yi Xian, he turned into a gentle kitten. Where was the slightest bit of arrogance? Sect Master Yi, this lowly one is willing to be at your beck and call. I won't dare to complain. Corpse Sect Master said with a flattering smile. However, his smile was uglier than crying. Greetings, Sect Master Yi. In the next moment, all the disciples of the 6 sects knelt down. The black mass of heads was extremely vivid. At this moment, the sound of a tsunami could be heard. This also made Yi Xian's mouth curve into a satisfied smile. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have done it in the first place. If I were master, I would definitely teach them a lesson. Fatso Huang's attitude was like a fox borrowing the power of a tiger. At this moment his face was full of pride. This also made Gu Beichen beside him shake his head helplessly. This Fatso Huang had always been like this. After so many years he still hadn't changed. Alright, that's enough, Gu Beichen whispered. Fatso Huang chuckled and didn't say anything else. The two of them both looked at Yi Xian. Obviously, they were also very interested in how Yi Xian would deal with these people. In the center of the mountain peak, the wind was blowing wildly. Yi Xian looked indifferently at the four sect masters. His voice was slightly indifferent as he said, "From now on, the four of you are my dogs. You will bite whoever I want you to bite. Of course, as my dogs, I naturally won't treat you badly. However, you must always remember that if you dare to betray me one day, you won't just end up like 9 Mountains loose cultivator. I will let you truly experience what it means to be neither alive nor dead." Yi Xian's words were too humiliating for the four sect masters. This already left them with no face at all. The four sect masters' faces were extremely red, but they didn't dare to retort. Yi Xian's way of controlling people was very simple. He would either not do anything, or he would be extremely ruthless. He would completely subdue the four sect masters, so that they would never dare to betray him. The word fear was very simple, but to understand its true meaning was very difficult. Yi Xian wanted to plant a seed of fear in the hearts of the four sect masters. Only in this way would the four sect masters work for him like dogs. Therefore, Yi Xian wanted to mercilessly tear off the last piece of cloth on their bodies. He wanted them to stand naked in front of him and listen to his orders and instructions. Did you hear that? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Yes, yes. The four sect masters stammered and hurriedly agreed. Even if they were to be dogs, they would still have their lives. Moreover, they were really afraid of Yi Xian. At this moment, they were already surrounded by fear. How could they still have any dignity left? Looking at the four sect masters' submissive appearance, Yi Xian smiled with satisfaction. This was the result he wanted. Fellow Taoist, you are very powerful. I wonder which sect you are the successor of. Suddenly, 3 streams of light shot over from the distant horizon. A slightly cold voice rang out between heaven and earth. In an instant, 3 figures appeared on the mountain peak. These 3 people were the late Song Huaimia and his Tao protector, Taoist Scarlet Flame. Beside them was Lin Qing'er. Chapter 1420. Elders. When Lin Qing'er saw the masses of people from the 6 sects kneeling on the ground, and saw the 4 great sect masters, and the 4 great sect elders with their foreheads touching the ground, her originally rosy little face instantly turned extremely pale. What happened? Lin Qing'er felt that her worldview was collapsing. Everything was fine before she left. How could everyone from the 6 sects kneel before Yi Xian in just a month's time? Women are truly troublesome creatures. Boom! Suddenly, Yi Xian flicked his finger, and a terrifying halo fell on Lin Qing'er's body. A mournful scream came from the woman's mouth, before she turned into a puff of green smoke and dissipated. Yi Xian killed people without any hesitation. This made Song Huaimia and Taoist Scarlet Flame frown, and a trace of gloominess flashed in their eyes. She was just a woman, and they didn't put her in their eyes. However, Yi Xian didn't put them in his eyes at all. This was a blatant provocation. Suddenly, Song Huaimia's face froze as he sized up Yi Xian with a pair of malicious eyes. He felt that he had seen Yi Xian somewhere before, but he couldn't remember where. It was no wonder that Song Huaimia felt familiar with Yi Xian. The two of them had met once thousands of years ago. Back then, Lu Yaoxing had brought Yi Xian to the temporal temple, and Song Huaimia and the other 2 geniuses had intercepted them midway. However, Yi Xian was still very weak at that time, and Lu Yaoxing had always been in front of him. Later on, Yi Xian had many disputes with the strongest of all time, and the two of them had never met again. Fellow Taoist's cultivation is Tongtian, and you have the disposition of a strongest seed. I seem to have seen you somewhere before. May I know where you live? Song Huaimian narrowed his eyes. At this moment, Yi Xian looked at Song Huaimian indifferently. He also felt that he had seen this person somewhere before. This made Yi Xian quickly recall. 3 breaths later, Yi Xian's eyes lit up. He had already recalled the other party's identity. Although Song Huaimia's aura was concealed, Yi Xian could tell with a single glance that Song Huaimia cultivated the undying immortal scripture. This reminded him of the hurried glance from the past. So it was him. Yi Xian's lips curled into a cold smile. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. He still remembered how arrogant this Song Huaimia was back then. He could even stand shoulder to shoulder with Lu Yaoxing. Who would have thought that Song Huaimia's cultivation would also step into the Tao-seeking realm after millions of years? It was no wonder. After all, Song Huaimia's cultivation was at the extreme Yin realm millions of years ago. Now that 10 million years had passed, Song Huaimia's talent was so demonic. Moreover, he was the successor of a strongest orthodoxy. How could he possibly remain at the Yin-Yang realm? However, at this moment, Yi Xian didn't put Song Huaimian in his eyes at all. Yi Xian's gaze had been fixed on Taoist's scarlet flame the entire time, and a trace of heaviness flashed through his eyes. No matter how demonic Song Huaimia's talent was, he could not possibly be a match for Yi Xian. Moreover, Yi Xian would not treat him as an opponent. What he was really paying attention to was Taoist's scarlet flame. This was because Yi Xian could feel that Taoist's scarlet flame was giving him an extremely heavy pressure. This pressure was not inferior to 9 Mountains Loose Cultivator. Although Taoist's scarlet flame's aura did not seem as strong as 9 Mountains Loose Cultivator, and should only be in existence that had opened the second gate of heaven, he was an immortal realm expert from a strongest orthodoxy. Moreover, he was in his peak state. It was not something that 9 Mountains Loose Cultivator's source world could compare to. Yi Xian could exhaust 9 Mountains Loose Cultivator and drag him to his death. However, this method was useless against Taoist's scarlet flame. Taoist's scarlet flame was a true immortal realm expert, and a terrifying existence that had opened the second gate of heaven. My friend, let me talk to you again. Song Huaimia's expression turned cold when he saw that Yi Xian did not speak. It was as if he was invisible. Interesting. People from the Immortal Heaven Palace actually came to the northern region's bitter cold. I wonder what the two of you are here for. Yi Xian regained his senses and looked at Song Huaimia. Song Huaimia and Taoist Scarlet Flame looked at each other and saw the astonishment in each other's eyes. The two of them didn't reveal their identities, but Yi Xian was actually able to see through them with a single glance. This caused the two of them to become even more curious about Yi Xian's identity. It seems that my friend is also from the Grand Central region. However, I wonder which orthodoxy you are the successor of. If you are also the successor of a strongest orthodoxy, I would like to be friends with you. Song Huaimia smiled and spoke. However, he looked at Yi Xian with even more surprise. This was because he was extremely certain that there was no such person as Yi Xian in the Grand Central region. After all, he had just seen Yi Xian like 9 Mountains Loose Cultivator with his own eyes. Ignoring Yi Xian's cultivation, his scheming and courage were definitely not unknown in the entire Grand Central region. You want to be friends with me? Yi Xian smiled. However, his smile was very strange, because he realized that Song Huaimia did not recognize him as Yi Xian. Song Huaimia's heart tightened as he looked at the smile on Yi Xian's face. He had an indescribable feeling towards Yi Xian, but he still said softly, "That's right. With fellow Taoist cultivation, you're already ranked among the strongest seeds. In the future, you'll have a chance to fight for the seat of the strongest of all time. If we can make friends, then let's not talk about the future. But in this battle for the great Tao, we can help each other. That's not what you think. Unfortunately, do you think you are qualified to be my friend?" The next moment, Yi Xian spoke with a smile. However, when Song Huaimia heard this, his expression suddenly froze. Then, His face instantly flushed red as an extremely terrifying killing intent burst forth. Fellow Taoist, are you provoking this saint? Song Huaimiya looked at Yi Xian with a sinister gaze. The divine light of obliteration quietly grew around him. Even the surrounding void was trembling uncontrollably. Provoke. Ha ha ha. Yi Xian laughed out loud, as if he had heard an extremely funny joke. After 3 breaths, Yi Xian's smile disappeared. His expression became extremely calm as he said, "With your little bit of cultivation, you are not within the scope of my provocation, because you are not qualified at all. You are courting death." Although Song Huaimiya was surprised by Yi Xian's cultivation and wanted to test Yi Xian's background, Yi Xian's provocation and disregard had already crossed his bottom line. He looked at Yi Xian with an extremely terrifying killing intent. Looking at the divine light of obliteration that surrounded Song Huaimiya, Yi Xian's eyes gradually turned ruthless. In his heart, he had already sentenced Song Huaimiya to death. Perhaps some people would ask why Yi Xian was provoking Song Huaimiya. Didn't he know that Taoist Scarlet Flame was Song Huaimiya's Tao protector? Wouldn't Yi Xian be fighting Taoist Scarlet Flame? After all, Taoist Scarlet Flame was not 9 Mountains' loose cultivator. He was an extremely terrifying existence. Perhaps he would even take Yi Xian's life. Chapter 1421. The answer was simple. Ignoring the fact that Song Huaimiya was from the Immortal Heaven Palace, and ignoring the conflict between Yi Xian and the Immortal Heaven Lord, Yi Xian had to kill Song Huaimiya and Taoist Scarlet Flame today to prevent his identity from being exposed. The reason was simple. Song Huaimiya had already noticed him. Although he had yet to recall who he was, he would definitely investigate his identity after Song Huaimiya left. As long as Song Huaimiya tried to recall, he would definitely be able to recall who he was. At that time, it would not just be Taoist Scarlet Flame. Song Huaimiya would definitely send news of him back to the Immortal Heaven Palace. At that time, the Immortal Heaven Lord would probably come personally to kill him. Therefore, when Yi Xian saw Song Huaimiya and Taoist Scarlet Flame, he would use any means to keep them here. He would not let them leave alive. Perhaps others are afraid of your Immortal Heaven Palace, but in my eyes, the Immortal Heaven Palace is only Esozo. Trash like you may be considered a supreme seed in the eyes of others, but in my eyes, if I want to crush you, it is no different from crushing an ant. Yi Xian smiled cruelly. He did not leave any face for Song Huaimiya, and directly said that he was useless. It was not that Yi Xian was arrogant, but that he did not place Song Huaimiya in his eyes. Even if Song Huaimiya was also in the Tao comprehending realm and cultivated the Immortal Sutra, his battle strength was several times stronger than those in the same realm. But so what? Song Huaimiya was only unparalleled in the same realm. If he were to fight Li Tsongtian, he would not be a match at all. From this, one could see the difference in strength between Yi Xian and Song Huaimiya. You are indeed arrogant, so arrogant that you do not place me in your eyes. Then, this saint will see how capable you are. Rumble. The Nirvana divine light Tongtian pierced through the ground. Endless killing intent surged into the sky. Song Huaimiya erupted with a terrifying aura. A black divine saber appeared in his hand. That terrifying killing power constantly flickered on the saber. Slash. Song Huaimiya didn't waste any words. He slashed out with his saber, as if he wanted to split the world apart. The terrifying saber light of nirvanic extermination was too dazzling, and it caused the people of the sixth sex to be aghast. Today's events had completely overturned the understanding of the people of the six sections. Since when were Tao querying third realm cultivators so terrifying? Could this be the battle prowess of the strongest seeds? Huaimiya, come back. Suddenly, Taoist Scarlet Flame frowned and shouted at Song Huaimiya. Ever since he had arrived, he had been observing Yi Xian. But in the end, the result was that Yi Xian was not a simple person. He actually gave him a mysterious feeling. And Yi Xian actually gave him a sense of danger. Although this sense of danger was extremely subtle and almost undetectable, it was indeed a real feeling. Taoist Scarlet Flame was shocked. Since when did a Tao querying third realm cultivator give him a sense of danger? Perhaps some heaven-defying monsters would give him such a feeling. But Yi Xian was a nobody, yet he gave him such a feeling? Qi. Song Huaimia didn't stop despite Daoist's scarlet flame's obstruction. Instead, his saber aura became even more terrifying as it slashed down at Yi Xian. Clearly, Yi Xian had truly angered him. Clang! Suddenly, the sound of metal clashing resounded. What happened next completely stunned Song Huaimia. His expression gradually turned to one of shock, shame and indignation. What happened? A pair of fingers. A pair of crystalline jade-like fingers were gently clamping down on the saber. Even though Song Huaimia was constantly pouring his saber light of nirvanic extermination into the saber, it couldn't advance any further, much less slash Yi Xian in two. Kill! Song Huaimia roared angrily as his cultivation erupted. Veins popped up on his hands as he gripped the saber hilt. An extremely terrifying divine light of nirvanic extermination constantly poured into the saber. What a pity! Song Huaimia's saber still couldn't advance any further. Yi Xian clamped down on the saber with 2 fingers as he looked at Song Huaimia with contempt. Perhaps Song Huaimia had few opponents in the Dao Querying 3 realm and was known as an ultimate seed. Unfortunately, he had encountered Yi Xian. Although they were both in the Dao Querying 3 realm, Yi Xian could already go against the Immortal realm. This was the terrifying aspect of Yi Xian. How could Song Huaimia be a match for Yi Xian? You know, you're just like a fly buzzing around. You really annoy me. Kacha! Yi Xian's fingers that clamped down on the saber trembled as the black divine saber broke into 2. However, this wasn't the end. Yi Xian struck out with his palm, causing an explosion in the void. Song Huaimia was sent flying by Yi Xian. Wah! 1 strike. It was just a single blow. The so-called ultimate seed. The so-called successor of an ultimate Dao orthodoxy. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Song Huaimia's mouth as he was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Disparity. A stark disparity. Song Huaimia and Yi Xian weren't even on the same level. How could he be a match for Yi Xian? A firefly dares to compete with the bright moon? Yi Xian spoke with disdain. Song Huaimia's ignorance and arrogance were extremely foolish in Yi Xian's eyes. Huaimia. Daoist Scarlet Flame's face was ashen as he took a step forward and caught Song Huaimia in his hand. He casually dispelled Yi Xian's terrifying attack and prevented Song Huaimia from being severely injured. Damn it! Song Huaimia stabilized his body as his body surged with annihilation divine light. He wanted to attack Yi Xian again because he had never suffered such a defeat. He couldn't even withstand a single strike from his enemy. This was simply unacceptable. Who was he? He was the strongest seed. He was an existence that could compete for the strongest of all time in the future. He was also the successor of the Undying Heaven Palace. Today, in this small and bitter cold land of the northern region, he had actually lost to an unknown person. If this matter were to spread out, he would become the biggest joke in the world. Back off, you are not a match for him. Suddenly, without waiting for Song Huaimia to make a move, Daoist Scarlet Flame roared and struck out a great technique to pull Song Huaimia back. Clearly, Daoist Scarlet Flame understood that although Song Huaimia was terrifyingly powerful among those of the same level, he wasn't a match for this mysterious black-clothed youth. If he continued to fight, he would only be humiliating himself. Uncle, kill him. Kill him for me. Song Huaimia instantly calmed down. He knew that Daoist Scarlet Flame wouldn't stop him for no reason. Clearly, he wasn't a match for Yi Xian. However, this also aroused Song Huaimia's jealousy. If Yi Xian were to compete with him for the strongest of all time in the future, how could he possibly be a match for Yi Xian? Therefore, killing Yi Xian at this moment and nipping him in the bud was the best way. Shut up. Suddenly, Daoist Scarlet Flame berated him. This also startled Song Huaimia. He didn't know why his uncle was angry with him. Young friend, your cultivation is at the Tongtian level. Even among the strongest seeds, you can definitely rank in the top 5. Today my uncle and nephew have offended you. I hope you don't take offense. Today's matter is just a misunderstanding. We will take our leave now. Daoist Scarlet Flame cupped his hands towards Yi Xian and turned to leave with Song Huaimia. Chapter 1422. Uncle, why don't you kill him? Kill him. Song Huaimian roared in anger. He couldn't understand why Daoist Scarlet Flame was so low-key. With Daoist Scarlet Flame's cultivation, killing Yi Xian wouldn't be difficult. Shut up and follow me back to the central region. Daoist Scarlet Flame frowned. Uncle, Song Huaimian was unwilling. Although he didn't know why Daoist Scarlet Flame wanted to let Yi Xian go, he knew that his uncle wouldn't harm him. He could only keep quiet. Looking at Song Huaimian's angry expression, Daoist Scarlet Flame sighed in his heart. He suddenly had doubts about whether Song Huaimian could become one of the strongest in history. Song Huaimian's talent was good, but his temperament was too impetuous. He didn't understand what Daoist Scarlet Flame meant. Daoist Scarlet Flame's trip to the North Star domain seemed to be to bring Song Huaimian to gain experience, but it was also to get away from the disputes between the strongest seeds in the central region. The clan leader of the Zhongshe clan had already gone to the ancestral land of the giant star beasts in order to obtain a heavenly beast pill for Song Huaimia. With this pill, Song Huaimia would be able to step into the immortal realm. At that time, with Song Huaimia's immortal realm cultivation base, he would be able to compete with the strongest few. Therefore, Daoist Scarlet Flame didn't want to cause any trouble. Moreover, Yi Xian's identity was too mysterious. Who knew if he had a Dao protector behind him? If he did, it would be troublesome. If Yi Xian was so terrifying, then his Dao protector would definitely be stronger than him. Therefore, Daoist Scarlet Flame wanted to keep the peace. After all, as long as the clan leader brought back the heavenly beast pill, Song Huaimian could naturally settle the score with Yi Xian in the future. Let's go. Daoist Scarlet Flame called out to Song Huaimian. Clearly, he wanted to leave this troublesome place. You guys come and go as you please. You don't put me in your eyes. Moreover, did I allow you to leave? Suddenly, without waiting for Daoist Scarlet Flame and Song Huaimia to leave, Yi Xian's malicious voice slowly sounded out, causing the area to become strangely silent. There were even people from the six sects who continuously sucked in cold breaths. Little friend, what are you talking about? Daoist Scarlet Flame couldn't believe his own ears. He really thought that he had heard wrong. This made him turn his head towards Yi Xian with a gloomy expression. Yi Xian stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His expression was calm and tranquil. Did I allow you to leave? Yi Xian repeated his previous words. This time, Daoist Scarlet Flame could be said to have heard it clearly. His face was covered in frost. You are not afraid of death? Daoist Scarlet Flame gritted his teeth as he enunciated each word. An extremely sinister look flashed across his eyes. One couldn't blame Daoist Scarlet Flame for being angry. He had yet to find trouble with Yi Xian, but the other party had come to find trouble with him. Even if Yi Xian was extremely powerful and ranked in the top 5 among the strongest seeds, he was only at the Dao querying third realm. How could he compare to him, an immortal realm expert who had opened the second heaven gate? If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to avoid trouble, Daoist Scarlet Flame would have attacked Yi Xian under normal circumstances. But now, Yi Xian was provoking him. This was an affront to his dignity. It doesn't matter whether I'm afraid of death or not. What's important is that the two of you will die here today. Yi Xian's smile was no longer there. His entire aura had turned sinister. Sir? Fatso Huang asked anxiously. Gu Beichen's expression also changed slightly. He didn't know why Yi Xian wanted to stop the uncle and nephew from leaving. After all, Daoist Scarlet Flame was an immortal realm expert who was in perfect condition. He wasn't someone Nine Mountains' loose cultivator could compare to. Loose cultivator Nine Mountain was definitely stronger than Daoist Scarlet Flame. After all, there was a difference in cultivation realm. However, loose cultivator Nine Mountain only had 2 hours of combat strength. Eventually, he would be exhausted to death by Yi Xian. However, Daoist Scarlet Flame was different. Although his cultivation level wasn't as high as loose cultivator Nine Mountains, he didn't have any hidden injuries. How could Yi Xian be his match? Uncle, kill him. Song Huaimian laughed sinisterly. He didn't want to leave. Now that Yi Xian was courting death, he was overjoyed. He wanted to borrow Daoist Scarlet Flame's hand to kill Yi Xian. Little friend, I'll give you one more chance. I hope you can take back what you just said. Daoist scarlet flame narrowed his eyes. A wisp of immortal divine light circled around him. The surrounding void distorted to the extreme and showed signs of collapsing. An immortal realm expert who has opened the second heaven gate. I also want to see if I can kill you. Yi Xian smiled coldly. A fiery light flashed through his eyes. The fighting spirit in his chest burned to the extreme. No one knew what Yi Xian was thinking. Although he had killed Lu's Cultivator 9 Mountain, it was only a trick. He didn't fight Lu's Cultivator 9 Mountain head-on. Daoist Scarlet Flame was an immortal realm expert who had opened the second heaven gate. His cultivation level was much lower than Lu's Cultivator 9 Mountains. Yi Xian wanted to test his limits. Yi Xian was indeed no match for an immortal realm expert who had opened the third heaven gate. However, that might not be the case for Daoist Scarlet Flame. Daoist Scarlet Flame was Yi Xian's whetstone. He was also Yi Xian's standard to measure his combat strength. Moreover, if he let the uncle and nephew leave easily, it wouldn't take long for Zhonghua Mia to remember his identity. Therefore, the two of them had to die here today no matter what. The younger generation will surpass us in time. As expected, the younger generation will surpass us in time. Daoist Scarlet Flame sneered and continued. I have to say that you are very arrogant. You are so arrogant that you think you can kill me. Arrogant. Yi Xian laughed mockingly and said, How do you know it won't work if you don't try? Brat, you're courting death. Don't blame me for this. Rumble. The immortal divine light was earth-shattering. Heavenly fire hung upside down in the sky. Daoist Scarlet Flame's body emitted a kind of golden flame. This kind of flame directly burned the surrounding void. A terrifying aura that could burn everything in the world erupted. Kill. Daoist Scarlet Flame didn't talk nonsense. He didn't want to think about who Yi Xian was, or whether he had a protector behind him. He directly shot out a heavenly fire great skill. The terrifying fire light slashed toward Yi Xian. Infinite universe, 10,000 laws of heaven and earth fix. Yi Xian suddenly attacked. This time, he didn't escape. Instead, he attacked Daoist Scarlet Flame violently. The heaven-bearing skill was running wildly in his body. He turned his hand and shot out a heaven-bearing skill. Bang! Heaven and earth were in turmoil. The heavenly fire burned the prairie. The two people's attacks collided. The golden flame exploded with a bang. The endless flame burned in all directions. Yi Xian was blasted away. The golden flame crazily swallowed his body, as if it wanted to turn him into ashes. Heaven and earth reversed, sun and moon hang upside down. Yi Xian retreated quickly. He chanted incantations. His hands formed the power of the chaos of heaven and earth. The golden flame that was about to drown him disappeared in an instant. You do have some skills, Daoist Scarlet Flame said faintly. However, there was a touch of seriousness in his eyes, and an extremely gloomy killing intent was born. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.